I think we're live. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 436. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible. Also hit that notification bell so you get all the updates for the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. Doc in the description, you read the video for you to follow along with. If you want to engage in the discussion, there'll be a link in the chat for you to click on. When you click on the link, please raise your hand while you're in the waiting room so that one of us can acknowledge you and advance you to the panel. All right, once we get 8 likes, we got 8 people watching, then we'll get started.
Hey, Mike, I can't hear you, bro. I think you might be muted, man.
Yeah, I was talking the whole entire time, and I was talking to myself.
Oh shit.
All right, we can get started, man. Let me just start off with this first item on the docket from the Architects newspaper. Construction begins on the Towering Center for Computing and Data Sciences at Boston University, BU. This is going to be interesting. Boston University will soon receive a tower that could make its campus an architectural destination up there with those of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, and Harvard University on the opposite side of the Charles River. Toronto-based firm KPMB Architects and national building contractor Suffolk broke ground earlier this week on a 19-story tower for the university's new Center for Computing and Data Sciences. When completed, the tower will be the university's first major teaching center in over 50 years, as well as the campus's tallest building. With nearly 350,000 square feet of interior space, the center will combine Boston University's Department of Mathematics, Statistics, and Computer Science under one roof to further interdisciplinary research in the field of data science. The building's vertically and distinct profile were designed to maximize opportunities for interactivity among its students and faculty while signaling the university's emphasis on STEM research to the world abroad. The terracotta colored envelope was chosen to stand out against the campus's primarily gray building. The project's largely transparent ground floor will occupy nearly the entirety of its rectangular site to drawing the public in, as well as to complete the streetscape along the Commonwealth Ave. We call it Com Ave here, the university's main thoroughfare. So this is going to be very interesting.
Wow, that's the design of the building right there?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting. They're trying to build like a Wakanda within that entire building. I think there might be more pictures to it now. There's no more pictures to it, but it's supposed to look like that.
Yeah, that's what I was tripping on. I was tripping on the symmetry of the building.
Yeah, if you look right here, you'll see these like roundabout sort of staircases that, if you remember in Wakanda, where not Wakanda, in Black Panther, when Shuri was working in her laboratory, the little swirly staircase, that kind of, they're trying to emulate that sort of.
Is that what that is right there?
Yeah.
I can kind of see. Yeah. Huh. But that the way they offset the upper, that's a trip, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty dope stuff that they're working on. I'm not too far. I'm probably about 5 minutes away from here.
Okay. It's almost like you ever see that like rock balancing or stone balancing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what that kind of reminds me of.
Yeah, they call it cantilever. That's what they call it. Cantilever.
Right, cantilever. Yeah. Makes
room for green roofs. So on here, there, and on the outer edges where there's no the opposite side of the cantilever, you'll see that there's a forestry on the outside of it. So dope stuff. We have Cocaine Kells and Mr. City on the panel as well.
Welcome.
All right, let me get started with the next item on the docket. We do have quite a few items on here. All right. All right, this one is from Slate.com. Against the cult of Apple, hostile to customers and enthralled to China, the beloved company doesn't deserve a pass. It's a good image. Looks like Soul Shader designers. The tech clash has arrived, and I am here for it. While the big tech companies have truly earned their reputations as bullies, tax cheats, and bad employers, and havens for men credibly accused of sexual harassment and abuse, many of my compatriots in the pitchfork and torch crowd are curiously forgiving of one of the most egregious offenders, Apple, purveyor of beautiful crystal prisons. The overall exemption from scrutiny, Slate's evil list, in which the company ranks at number 6, counts as the rare corrective to the conventional wisdom, is nothing new. Apple's unironic cult of Mac has long been an off the balance sheet major asset for the company, which has managed the seemingly impossible trick of getting its customers to feel like an oppressed minority over their decision to spend money on products made by one of the most profitable companies on earth. Those products and the company's suite of services treat these customers as adversaries using a mix of code and law to ensure that they arrange their affairs to Apple shareholders' benefit. Interesting. Apple's alpha and omega is control. The App Store is designed to ensure Apple gets to decide who provides code to Apple customers. And the company has used the power to block apps on capricious and political grounds, from a dictionary to an app that told you whenever a U.S. drone strike killed a civilian, to an app used by Hong Kong protesters to evade the city-state's police forces during pro-democracy demonstrations. But the most important reason to control apps is to get a bigger cut, a 30% cut that Apple takes out of every software developer's hide. Don't worry, the developers recoup by charging you more. Unlike rival mobile app store Google Play, Apple's App Store is the only legal game in town on its devices. In this, the law is on Apple's side, thanks to Section 1201 of the Digital Millennial Copyright Act, DMCA, which bans bypassing copyright access controls. If you provide a tool for Apple products to use rival app stores, that's a potential felony punishable by a 5-year sentence and a $500,000 fine for a first offense. In recent years, Apple has extended this closed approach beyond its operating system and into its physical devices as well, building phones that attempt to detect third-party parts or repairs by independent service depots. These devices refuse to work if they determine that Apple customers have had the telemetry to use suppliers and service centers of their own choosing rather than Apple's official service depots. It's not surprising that last January, Apple CEO Tim Cook warned his shareholders that Apple's future profits were seriously endangered by Apple customers electing to use their devices for longer, getting them repaired rather than replacing them. That also explains why Apple led the manufacturing coalitions that defeated 20 state rights to repair bills in 2018. Despite all of this, Apple gets a pass from its adherents, who rationalize away the company's behavior, arguing that device owners don't mind being forced to get their apps, parts, and service from Apple. Obviously, if they were true, Apple wouldn't have to use any kind of technical countermeasures to prevent people from accessing third-party app stores, parts, and services. The people who want the freedom to make their own choices about their Apple devices are, by definition, Apple customers. It's not like Samsung customers are the ones who are taking iPhones to independent repair shops. Sorry. Apple is often held apart from the other tech giants because of its public embrace of privacy. The company has indeed taken some admirable stances, like its refusal of the FBI's demand to weaken its encryption after the 2015 San Bernardino terrorist shooting, and more recently, its denial of Attorney General's Bill Barr's request that it unlocks the iPhones of the Pensacola naval-based shooter. But Apple's arm lock on its users makes it an attractive target for any government that wants to spy on its citizens. And Apple's resolve isn't always as strong as it is when the FBI comes knocking. In 2017, the Chinese government banned the distribution of virtual private networks, or VPNs, which are supposed to keep web browsing private and secure, insisting that they will be replaced with VPNs with known backdoors to allow the Chinese state to capture and analyze VPN traffic. That summer, Apple removed all working VPNs from its App Store in China. Concerned about this move, Senators Ted Cruz and Patrick Leahy sent a letter to Apple saying the company may be enabling the Chinese government's censorship and surveillance of the internet. A year later, we learned that consequences of the Chinese state surveillance was anything but abstract. In May 2018, the Associated Press first reported on concentration camps for Uyghurs, Kazakhs, and other predominantly Muslim ethnic minorities in Xinjiang province, and credible estimates put the total number of incarcerated people at 1 million. Rather than push back against China's demands, Apple made a change to its app platform that potentially made the rounding up of these prisoners easier. The fact that this was not the commercial surveillance that that has earned Facebook and Google scrutiny is hardly relevant. Apple's decision not to mine its users' behavior for advertising purposes is no comfort when it so easily folds to demands of a surveillance state for non-advertising purposes. Nor is the fact that Apple would struggle to keep its supply chain intact if it were kicked out of China any excuse. It's not like the country's dismissal of human rights record was any secret when Apple made it central to its operations. There's a touchstone. There's a touchstone of techlash. If you're not paying for the product, you are the product. But the reality is that monopolists are endlessly inventing ways of extracting rents from their customers and suppliers. In fact, the same works even outside the free for data model of Facebook and Google. When it comes to Apple, even if you're paying for the product, you're still the product. Sold to app programmers as a captive market or gouged on parts and services by official Apple depots. And Apple's techniques have proliferated. The control through software model has metasized into every category of device, from smart light sockets that require manufacturer-approved bulbs to smart Nerf guns that require manufacturer-approved foam darts.
Did you say a smart Nerf gun?
Yeah, they have that.
Wow.
IoT Nerf. Apple's control over service has caught the attention of the likes of John Deere, which will cheerfully sell farmers tractors for hundreds of thousands of dollars and then tell the U.S. Copyright Office that they don't own the tractors, merely license them. And that
now that's a I didn't mean to cut you off, Mike. There's actually a documentary on this I actually saw on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty fascinating about John Deere.
Mm-hmm.
How you go and buy one of their tractors, and because they're all teched out and everything, when it goes down or something, all of a sudden they're basically telling you can't work on it.
Yeah, no different than Tesla.
Yep.
And that is why
it's the same thing with these commercial trucks too, man. A lot of times, you know, these when they break down, you got to take them back to the dealership. A lot of times.
Okay. And that is why they can't expect to repair their agricultural equipment, as farmers have done since the days when every barn had a workshop and a small smithy attached to it. None of this is to let Google, Facebook, Oracle, or Microsoft off the hook. These companies are all monopolists that have spent the young century engaged in abusive and anti-competitive conduct. From buying up their nascent competitors, Apple bought 20 to 25 companies in the first 6 months of 2019. I did not know that.
Let me ask this, Mike. Do you think it's possible if you are like a...
Brother, let me finish the article.
Hold on, we're gonna finish the article, man. We'll go ahead and chop it up.
Yeah.
All right.
To merging with their largest competitors to concerning vertical markets, then abusing suppliers, retailers, and customers with verve not seen since the days of Carnegie and Rockefeller. Google isn't your friend, and neither is Facebook, nor Twitter, nor Airbnb, and neither is Apple. So what I'm seeing here is that although this is a very scathing piece against Apple, I'm not 100% in cahoots with it. I think that I would wonder if this person actually used to work for Apple. But
well, I was gonna say, man, you know, we've been kind of on a anti-Apple tear here. It's late.
Anti-Apple, not so much anti-Apple, but actually critiquing.
Critiquing is a criticism. Yeah.
No, my question, Mike, was: do you think is it possible? Is there some sort of certification that they can get from Apple to work on their own equipment, or
no? They already struck it down. But I'm saying the article is saying that it struck it down. It doesn't allow that. Right.
Wait, so, you're talking about what individuals working on there?
Independent shops.
No, you can become an authorized Apple repair facility.
Okay.
There's just you have to go through their own internal um, like training, I guess you could say. You have to get improved from Apple. It's not like, so for example, you have like Samsung, name all these manufacturers, and like, so they all run Android, right? So Samsung
Okay.
isn't really going to require you to be a Samsung specialist to work on their shit, right? Okay, Apple, it's a little bit different.
All right.
Yeah, it's going to be more difficult. One of the things that people need to understand is that Apple makes 80% of their profit off of iPhones. And what happens here is if the iPhone doesn't have some exclusive technology to it that makes it stand out with the next two models, they could actually see a formal collapse of the company. They don't sell as many Macs as they used to. I know the academic institutions love Macs, but at the recent years, a lot of college and universities and K through 12s have been adopting Google
Like Chromebooks.
So because it's so much cheaper, you could buy 10 to 20 Chromebooks for the price of one.
For like a couple of PowerBooks.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the MacBook Pros.
Yeah, the MacBook Pros.
Yeah.
And I'm picking up an echo. I don't know if it's on my end or is anyone else picking that up?
No, I think that might be you, bro. You might want to log off and log back on.
All right.
All right. We got Cyberdyne on the panel.
I just brought Cyberdyne in.
Hello.
Hey, what's going on, Jay?
Good. Just real quick, that deal with Apple. There's actually a lady. She's a doctor. She has a degree in biomechanical engineering and biochemistry engineering. I think she lives in Alaska or Norway or somewhere. Long story short, she actually has one of those Apple license thingies that allow her to work on a device. And basically what happened was that some people lost a phone, iPhone, and Apple basically told them it is impossible to recover data if your iPhone is damaged, submerged in water, whatsoever. So what she did, being a scientist, she invented and figured out a way to extract phone data and photos from a submerged and damaged hard drive where it was liquid damaged. It was said it couldn't be done.
Hot water.
Apple found out about that, and guess what they did? They basically revoked her license because Apple's terms explicitly state, especially in the community guidelines, that it is not to be done. It can't be done. You have to buy a new device. So if you fix that device, then you're going against Apple's terms and conditions. So I just wanted to say that.
No, that's
no one told you to go around reverse engineering stuff.
no, that's a good point, because what happens here is that from a forensic standpoint, for example, those cargo ships that sink in the ocean sometimes because they hit a reef or something like that. They lose all their logistics, and they turn over in the water. There's still special companies that go in and retrieve all of those shipping containers. And what they had found was that some of those shipping containers had been underwater for 6 months, and that the computers that were in them were submerged in there. But they were able to retrieve the data off of it. So if you're a bad guy, if you're a nation state and you're looking to steal data off of hard drives that are sunken over in the water, yeah, you could very well retrieve a lot of this data. That's a big problem. Now, I know the new Samsung devices, you can kind of leave them underwater for a few minutes or so. But for the Apple devices, I don't know what the IPS rating is on those.
They say you can. The new iPhones, they say they're submersible, up to 6 inches of water or something like that, and I forgot for how many minutes.
Yeah, I think the Samsung is something like 10 feet of water or something like that. I forget, it's like a meter. It's like 2 meters or something like that. It can go underwater.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing. Like, you want to write it off and say, okay, well, this is no good to me. It's already underwater. Oh, well. Well, there's some pretty freakish people out there that used to do dumpster diving. Now they do sea diving and go and retrieve, man. And they come back up with a whole lot of good data.
Yeah. I mean, if you can retrieve it, man.
It's a very lucrative business, man. I think each hard drive is like $5,000 or close to $5,000 to retrieve data from. You got 1,000 computers or 1,000 phones. Yeah, you're making pretty good money off of that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, given that you know, Cyberdyne was talking about how they revoked that chick's license.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'd have basically taken that little script or whatever it is that she invented to extract data. I'd have sold that shit on the black market, like just as a fuck you that. You know what I mean? I'd have been like, oh, for real, we doing that? I'd have just sold that shit off to hackers, dude.
Well, but keep in mind that the iPhone uses solid state disk,
The
right?
SSD, yeah.
So it's not using a spinning hard drive.
Right.
Yeah. She still does repair, but Louis Rossmann, if a lot of you know him on YouTube,
I heard
he's
the name.
guy, yeah, Louis Rossmann is Apple's biggest enemy. He's the guy who basically, he's here in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, anything wrong with an Apple device, he can not only fix it, but he has like a channel with like over 1 million subscribers, and he teaches people how to fix Apple devices. I mean, even down to the schematics and what Apple. This is a good article, Mike, you read, because what he did, they got a lawsuit against the guy, and you had mentioned something about that right to repair. That's all Louis Rossmann causing that fire. What Apple did, they basically have now restricted or have no longer made available their schematics to people who can read, figure out a schematic, to be able to look up your device, figure out what's wrong with your device, and repair your device. So they're basically saying, hey, it's like saying, hey, if you spill some water on your carpet, you can't clean it, and you can't call anyone else to clean it. You got to pull the whole thing up. And if you try to put in new carpet on your own, you know, the floor is gonna crack or something like that. So I mean, she still does repair, but man, they're really shady, and like you said, nobody's really holding them to the fire. And I don't mean to sound condescending to users, but you know, if they're users allowing them to do that, you know, it's because most of those folks don't know shit, you know. And it's not a knock against people who with an Apple device, but I'm just saying that's their base. You know, we don't want you to know anything. Let us do all the thinking for you, and we'll tuck you in at night. So
Yeah, that's always been Apple's model from day one. But you know, a lot of those people who have these damaged phones, they haven't even finished paying off that phone, and you want them to jump to another one. Man, that's like a you know, debt into perpetuity. So plus the repair cost isn't cheap, man. So it's difficult for me to
That's
recommend.
why you gotta have that Apple Care, man.
I wonder if Apple does care, though. You know, I don't think Apple does. For real, though. For real. I want to make sure that I clarify that, you know, this is just me speaking for myself. I don't speak for Complex Design and his employer.
Good.
You
Yeah, we good.
All right, let me jump to the next article from Forbes.com. Microsoft asks 400 million people to buy a new PC and other small business tech news. This came from Willie Littlejohn earlier today. Here are 5 things in technology that happened this past week, how they affect your business. Did you miss them? Microsoft has recommended that 400 million users buy new PCs by next month after recently announcing that they will be ending support for the Windows 7 operating system. Microsoft released a statement this week suggesting that it's nearly 400 million users still on Windows 7 switch entirely to Surface rather than upgrade their devices. The company detailed that for most users who are using Windows 7, navigating over to a brand new PC that has Windows 10 Pro will be the most efficient move since. According to Microsoft, those devices are more secure, powerful, lightweight, and operate faster than the previous models. That makes sense if you're Microsoft trying to sell computers. Why this is important for your business? Okay, no one's saying that you have to buy a Surface. There are plenty of other great devices you can buy for your business that also run Windows 10. But please, if your company still has computers running Windows 7, you have to do something. Upgrade, switch to new devices, turn them off. Computers running older operating systems like Windows 7 are very vulnerable to malware attacks, which means that the cost of not upgrading could very well exceed the cost of replacing those older computers. Don't disagree with them. Google is planning to kill support for third-party cookies that track you all over the internet. I think we've talked about that. Apple's new privacy features have further rattled location-based ad market. I don't want to bash Apple anymore or support that. Why this? After years of decline, the PC market saw rare growth in 2019. Yeah, that was suspected. A lot of people still holding on to their old devices. Nothing new there. All right, Cyberdyne, you bought an 802.11 AD router.
I did. I'm playing with it now.
Who makes it?
Netgear. And that's a good question. I wanted to get I'm doing some more blowing up stuff here in the house. So I wanted to get faster throughput because I got a bunch of devices here that I'll be spinning up later.
Okay.
And I wanted to start utilizing and leveraging tri-band protocols, because I got a gig pipe here for FiOS.
Yep.
So I looked at this. I was about to just get another Linksys router that was gonna allow me to have 5.3 gigs of throughput combined on a tri-band. But I turned my head and the young guy sold me on a future proofing with an AD 802.11. So I bought it.
My perspective on 802.11 AD is that that's good for that's good if your devices are all relatively close, because that's really what it's meant for. But the problem is that you don't have a lot of receivers or endpoints that have 802.11 AD, and so that's where the bottleneck becomes prevalent, right? So most of your phones are all 802.11 AC. The TVs are at best 802.11 AC if they're new.
Yeah.
Laptops are coming out this year are going to be 802.11 AX. So
yeah, AX. Yep, that's right.
Yeah, I can't imagine that anything that's going to be available within the next few moon cycles, 802.11 AD.
Yeah, it's gonna be a while. Hence the future proofing, and what I'm going to do, because I'm living in the loft, and it's all pretty linear. And so what I plan to do, some of these routers, and I actually have a Cisco enterprise router that I got from work when we decommissioned a bunch of stuff. So, for your network enthusiasts out there, I can sidecar that and just turn that into a basic, I can basically turn it into a access point. And I believe this Linksys router I have also is turned into an access point as well. So you're right. While I won't be able to use AD for quite some time until that comes about, what I will do is leverage a lot of the AC and a lot of the singular band technology with 5 gigs or 2.4. I'll utilize that on some computers, and for the 60 gigahertz, you got to have a line of sight for stuff like that. So I'll just isolate some devices to a separate room to kind of play around with the 60 hertz and AD stuff. And then, when AD hits, is hopefully this thing won't burn out. I'll be able to play around with some of it. So.
Yeah, it's very tricky. For those of you who are listening to this and don't really understand what he's saying, what we're talking about new routers that have a lot of these immense capabilities that they didn't have before. I know your Netgear probably has its own operating system in there. It probably has a whole bunch of firewall, next generation firewall settings and stuff like that. My Asus has Trend Micro built into it with what do you call it? Content filtering firewall. So
Yeah, the auto content filter. Yeah, that's pretty good.
yeah, it is pretty awesome. I haven't had any real issues with it other than it does run hot when you have a whole lot of devices. I have about 20 devices on it right now.
Right.
I mean, is that sounds like it's kind of running like a quasi VPN on the router firmware itself, something like that?
Yeah, this thing has it's got a 1.7 gigahertz quad core processor, and it even has its own Plex media server built into the darn thing.
All at a router?
Yeah,
Yep.
they run like
Damn.
little.
I paid 500 bones, 500 plus bones.
Shit. It's like a damn near. It's like a computer.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
It
Is
is.
the performance worth it? Like,
Well,
do you even see the performance?
It's future proof.
Yeah, I'm future proofing. So like I said, I have a gig. For those of you all who got FiOS out there, depending on where you live, I'm on the East Coast here. I got the 1 gig from FiOS, and so 2020 is a year that, you know, developing some applications in the house and just doing some things. What I want instead of range, because I don't need range, because I got mesh devices that I can put up to simulate, you know, a mesh network. So I'm not worried about getting through walls or anything. But what I am concerned about is maximizing, getting as much throughput as I can out of the connection that I'm paying FiOS $100-something for. You know,
Basically maximizing the pipe.
For streaming purposes. Yeah,
right.
That's right. It's got other protocols and stuff like that to it, but I believe in future proofing. I future proof my machines. I future proof my routers, so that I can work hard and just squeeze them, man. Squeeze them for the max.
Squeeze them hard.
Yeah, that's right.
So have you updated the firmware? Are you still just tuning it right now?
Nah, I haven't done anything. I'm still looking at peeling the plastic off, listening to the string.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I saw that in the store, man, and I was like, I don't know about that. So
Dude, you're like legit unboxing right now.
Yeah, pretty much just like sniffing it, you know, Scott.
Well, he has to make sure that it works 30 days from now too.
Yeah, it's huge though. It's huge.
Yeah, it is huge.
It's got like you can see the fans in the top of this thing. It's got a fan sitting right in the top with a vent. So I'm plopping it down here, and we'll see. I have Cat 6A cables that I've got running, and that's what's gonna feed it. This Cat 6A cable.
Yeah.
So,
for those of you not understanding what we're talking about, 802.11ad is basically for smart homes, because you're going to be taking on a lot of smart devices streaming into an IoT. This is what it's really built for. So I'm just going to read this caption real quick. 802.11ad is a multi-gigabit Wi-Fi technology that allows you to download and share 4K videos in seconds, as well as sync photo albums and access cloud content in near real time. It complements the efficiency of 802.11ac, which was mentioned earlier, by supporting ultra high speed zones as fast as 4.6 gigabits per second. That's what Cyberdyne was mentioned earlier, 5.3 pipe that he has. 802.11ad not only benefits consumers with high speed data, but also helps by providing step up increase in capacity to better manage skyrocketing media traffic. So this is a protocol that's really set up for streaming, because they're banking on the idea that people are going to be watching a lot of YouTube and Netflix and chill. So
you don't say.
Yeah, it's going to be a whole lot of that, man.
I cut the cord. Actually, that's a good point, Mike. I actually my mom, who's down in Ohio, they got Spectrum down there. I feel bad for them. They took out Time Warner. I cut the cord here because, to be honest, I don't watch a lot of TV. But what I do is like if the finals or the Super Bowl or something's on, I got attracted to YouTube, and I got attracted to YouTube and Netflix for my TV. And so if I want to watch something, I'm happy with just putting it on, slapping it on YouTube, or looking at whatever Netflix has. Other than that, I don't really I don't have a use for cable, no phones, no anything like that. It's just give me a reliable a reliable Ethernet data pipe or fiber pipe, and I'm happy. I can work off of that, So
Yeah, someone was asking about a picture of it, and this is it right
That's it.
there. And
That's it.
yeah,
Yep,
yeah,
that's
I
it.
saw
It's
that in the
big.
store.
It's pretty big.
Yeah, I saw that in the store. It shows right here that there's a difference in performance, throughput. So 802.11 AD versus 802.11 AC, 1.3 gigs. It kind of caps out at, and I actually don't get 1.3. I actually get about 966. That's about the extent of it. I haven't been able, even next to the router, I don't get that.
Right.
So I'm losing performance, and it might just be due to the fact that there's some software caps and things like that in the design of the software for the operating system of the router and Chrome.
What kind of cable you got on there, if you don't mind me asking?
Cable?
Yeah, what kind of, it's I'm glad you said that also. I downloaded Visual Studio, I want to say, was it 2019? 2019, and for some development work. And I put a lot of stuff in it. I put a lot of the modules and stuff in it. And so what it for those out there listening, it ended up being I want to say about a 250 gig download. It's huge. And I had just some regular, maybe Cat 5E, maybe Cat 6E cables, hooked up. And I literally let the thing run for like 4 days, and it would bottleneck, it wouldn't work. And so I said, you know what, man, I'm gonna bring some Cat 6A cables out of the closet from the office here. As soon as I plugged them up, it just went lickety split quick. And so I'm wondering, maybe just maybe if you change out your cabling, because Cat 6A will facilitate up to 10 gigs. If you change that cabling out, maybe you could squeeze some more throughput in there and you'll get a little bit better performance, if not a lot more increase.
So this is not predicated on the cable itself. This is just connected to the access point, right? In 802.11 AC state. So I'm not even downloading anything. I'm just looking at the connectivity from Windows and Android, and that's what it's telling me. 866 900 9. Let me see right here. Yeah, it's not saying anything right here. Oh yeah, it's only about 866. It drops to 667 or something like that if I just move around. So it's not so much about the cable, but it's more about the endpoint device to the access point itself.
Okay.
What speed is it connecting at wirelessly rather than what the download throughput is from the cable itself.
Got you.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to get my cable professionally built though. With the metal.
Oh, you get them sealed? Okay.
Yeah, with the metal instead of nylon.
Yeah. That's big timing for those out there that don't know that.
Yeah, it's more reliable that way. All right, let me just read this article real quick. This one is from VentureBeat.com. AMD CTO: how making the right bets years ago is paying off now. It's been a long ride for Mark Papermaster, Chief Technology Officer at Advanced Micro Devices, but the journey to challenge Intel in the race to design, make, and ship the best microprocessors on the planet is paying off. At CES 2020, the big tech trade show in Las Vegas, AMD was on a victory lap. The company showed off its Ryzen 4000 mobile processors based on its Zen 2 architecture and most cost-efficient 7-nanometer manufacturing process. I talked to Papermaster at CES, and he was gratified to see 7-nanometer rolling out, manufacturer rollout across the entire AMD product line, including the new AMD 5600 graphics processing units. Coming soon is a monstrous $4,000 64-core AMD Threadripper processor that will claim the title of the most powerful microprocessor. And AMD is working on designing the next generation processor architecture dubbed Zen 3. I joined a group interview with AMD CEO Lisa Su, and I also had an opportunity to sit down with Papermaster one-on-one. So I'm not going to read this whole thing, but we've been talking about AMD since 2018, maybe even earlier than that. And this is where this is where the market is going. I don't see AMD with their roadmap. I don't see them letting off an Intel's neck probably until like 2024. They're gonna have the ball in their court for a long time. When we spoke about the AMD sticker, or the ticker, I should say, the stock price was at something like $10 or $12 a share. Now it's at $50 a share.
I bought it at 25.
Good for you. Good for you. I hope you didn't cash out yet.
I'll never cash out.
All right, this one is from techspot.com. Intel is prototyping PCIe 4.0 SSDs, but needs AMD CPUs to test them. Oh, the irony. AMD became the first to support PCIe 4.0 with third generation Ryzen. While at launch, the upgrade over Intel's PCIe 3.0 was mostly academic. A slew of PCIe 4.0 SSDs have since been released with speeds almost twice as fast as previous generations. Intel CPU department might not have seen that as a big deal, but apparently their storage division does. Intel's technical marketing performance engineer, Frank Ober, tweeted that Intel is willing to send out PCIe 4.0 SSDs to developers, but the developers will need PCIe 4.0 CPUs to take advantage of them. In September, Intel confirmed the development of Alder Streams SSDs, an update to their Optane drives that will use second generation 3D X-Point technology. 3D X-Point is often marketed as a middle ground for RAM and solid storage. It's cheaper per gigabyte than system memory with similar latency, but its SSD speeds mean it can't really replace RAM. The next generation of X-Point focuses on enhancing speeds according to Intel. But if they want to double speed or, like Micron, triple them, then they'll need either twice as many PCIe lanes or to upgrade to PCIe 4.0, which has twice PCIe 3.0's bandwidth. Intel wanted to build PCIe 4.0 to support new architecture based on 10 nanometer, but they've been forced to delay that for years. It's now scheduled to enter production in late 2020. So if we cross our fingers and pray, we might just see PCIe 4.0 supporting CPUs from Intel in early 2021. Meanwhile, they'll be buying from AMD. So I mentioned this last article that they may not, Intel may not catch up to AMD till maybe after 2020.
I think it's like 2025, right?
Yeah, 2024 at best. And they're saying they won't even have their product out until early 2021. AMD already has it. They're already a year and a half ahead of them. Already have it. They're already on board. So go AMD, I guess.
If you own it, yeah.
If you're Intel, if you're Apple, you're probably looking at this and saying maybe we should save some money and buy AMD.
It ain't like they hurting for money. They got it.
Yeah, they got it.
Yeah, they won't do it though.
Well, they already bought the AMD Radeon graphics processor, so for their MacBook Pros. So we'll see what happens after that.
Wait, they bought Radeon exclusively?
No, they're using the technology in their
They're just using, they're just using it, right?
Yeah.
But you're saying like as sort of like a power move or a grab.
No, meaning they can replace Intel CPUs with AMD.
With AMD, right? But what I'm saying is, if Apple did that, then okay, that would actually put them in the realm of not only being a computer manufacturer but also a chip maker.
No. This would just be. Because right now they've always had a partnership with Intel, right? Since they left IBM,
right?
And so I don't know what they're paying for Intel, From what I heard, before Steve Jobs died, you know, he tried to twist the arm of IBM, and IBM told him to go screw.
They told him to screw, right?
Right. So that's why he went to Intel, but he has to be paid. He must have had to pay a pretty penny to Intel to get this exclusiveness on the CPUs first, right?
Right.
But you may not need to spend any money on Intel if you're Apple, if AMD has a better processor for half the price.
Well, if it's for half the price, yeah, you already aren't spending any more money. You're actually saving. It's just a matter of how much.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying I want what's going on in Apple.
Right.
All right, this one is from Engadget.com. Hitting the books, hackers can convince your IoT devices to betray you. All right, welcome to Hitting the Books with less than 1 in 5 Americans reading just past that. The Internet of Things is the interconnection of millions of computing devices via the internet equipped with sensors that directly receive and transfer data without human involvement. As the IoT grows to encompass more cars, kitchen appliances, thermostats, door locks, voice-activated assistants, and even hospital infusion pumps and heart monitors, it provides malevolent actors plentiful opportunities for hacking into systems and wreaking havoc. A great danger is that because private sector companies compete furiously to get their products to market cheaply and quickly, software engineers routinely fail to incorporate security into their designs. Release of new products takes priority over implementing security features. And since competitors' security is just as lax, properly securing these consumer products which would lead to delays of months, would be a serious competitive disadvantage. What has resulted is a kind of race to the bottom. According to one estimate, 70% of all IoT devices have flaws such as unsecured software and unencrypted communication systems. Thus far, companies are usually not held legally responsible for hacks that break through lack security in consumer devices. What's more, the companies themselves have little incentive to secure or encrypt these data sources because easy access affords them a wealth of information about users. Openness and accessibility are valuable. For those who want to sell to us, having information on what millions of people do is very lucrative. But profiles of our behavior are also extremely valuable intelligence for those who want to attack us. Consumers have little to no control over what information is gathered through these devices because they do not own the software that runs them or have control over that software. The Internet of Things is changing the nature of buying and owning items. According to law professor Joshua Fairfield, a fundamental shift in property rights is underway, and we're entering an era of digital serfdom, loosely resembling feudalism. Whereas serfs did not own their own land, homes, or even farm tools, we generally owned the hardware of our smart devices, but the companies who produce them own the software and the information about us they gather. With some smart products, even the hardware is not owned outright, but rather rented. John Deere, for example, has told farmers that they don't really own the tractors they purchased from the company because they are licensing the software that runs them. Farmers cannot fix their vehicles themselves or take them to independent repair shops. Complex Design mentioned that earlier. Because IoT devices are connected to the internet, they can also be hacked, and intrusions are already widespread. Would you leave your front door wide open? In August 2017, hundreds of internet-connected locks became inoperable because of a faulty software update by Lockstate. It left hundreds of homeowners unable to lock or unlock their homes for a week. Hackers have moved from taking remote control of PCs to taking control over your smart TV or your city's CCTV cameras instead. They have hacked cars, power plants, smart bulbs, and voting machines. Relatively inexpensive IoT hacking tools are widely and cheaply available to non-state actors. Why bother planting an explosive device under a car if you can hack into the vehicle's navigation system and make it accelerate into a wall or off a bridge? No need for assassination if hackers can deliver a fatal dose of insulin through the unencrypted radio communication system of the insulin pump. No need to take physical hostages, just tamper with a hospital's computer-connected infusion pump to overdose a patient, then threaten to do the same to others. Ransomware.
I mean, you know, they're putting a lot of ideas out here, man. I really don't think they should be putting out here.
The bad guys are already doing it. If you could think of it, they're already done it. According to American cryptographer and computer security expert Bruce Shiner, IoT devices are more valuable or vulnerable than your laptop or your phone for a number of reasons. The first is that huge corporations like Apple, Samsung, and Microsoft can't afford to hire large teams of engineers devoted to security, while the smaller companies that are making smart locks and thermostats, for example, cannot. Second, whereas people replace their smartphones and laptops every few years, that is not the case for smart refrigerators, pacemakers, or cars, which they will keep for 5 or 10 years or more. Nefarious actors have much more time to discover their vulnerabilities, and because the software is rarely updated, those vulnerabilities persist year after year, just waiting to be exploited. To make matters worse, a vulnerability in one internet-enabled device, like your home router, can be used as a launchpad for attacks against a range of other connected devices you might own. One small flaw in your whole computer-assisted file can be hijacked. Much attention has been paid to the threat of espionage and cyber attacks by states. And in February 2016, U.S. Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, warned that Internet of Things will further empower state-sponsored espionage, enabling better monitoring, tracking, and targeting of individuals. The threat of attacks by non-state actors is also high. For terrorists, a key question now, as always, is which avenues of attack are most easily available? Enormous collections of data are enticing targets at scales of magnitude that non-state malicious actors could never dream of. Excuse me for a second.
Hello?
It's a hottie.
That's the White House calling Mike saying, "Hey, Mike, we need you to drop off the stream for a minute."
You ain't shit, Simon. You ain't shit.
Red alert, Mike. Red alert.
Yeah, you ain't shit for that, man. Oh man. Where was I at? All right, let me the threat of attacks by non-state actors is also high for terrorists. A key question now, as always, is which avenues of attack are most easily available. Enormous collections of data are enticing targets at scales of magnitude that non-state malicious actors could never dream of amassing themselves. States and corporations are focused on potential fruits of big data rather than on the criminals and terrorists who can hack into it. By connecting everything from home defense systems to medical devices to utility companies to hydroelectric dams to the internet, we have made a new means of attack highly accessible. Absent better security measures, well-established processes of the diffusion of lethal empowerment will kick in. In the mid-20th century, airline hijackings evolved from airplane flight diversions to Cuba to the downing of airliners with hundreds of innocent people aboard. Exploiting the Internet of Things to hold people hostage or attack them will spawn increasingly violent copycat attacks. Putting better defense measures in place is essential. Yeah, this is a big problem, right? We're actually going to have a deep dive tomorrow about this, or talk about this tomorrow, Tuesday. But the thing that people should need to understand is that these devices, like the article is saying, they're not encrypted and not protecting user information. They should be held liable. The company should be held liable for not protecting your data. Your data, sensitive data, PII, needs to be protected on any device. It's not the fault of the user that the data has been lifted or stolen by bad guys, right? It's whoever manufactured it. They did not put any locks on it. There's no control mechanisms in place. They should be held accountable. California Data Privacy Act is enabled now. Massachusetts data protection regulation is enabled now. New York, New Jersey both have similar data protections in place by the state, and if you do not comply with it, If you're a company, it can cost you up to $50,000 per record that is lost. I don't see why these companies are getting away with this. I would also add that the federal government, who gives out these Obama phones, those phones are very vulnerable to attacks. They basically leak all your information out. So the government needs to find themselves first before they start worrying about what the Chinese and what the Russians are doing. They need to figure out why they're putting out devices that are leaking out information too.
They're doing that so they know people who get those Obama phones. One of the big things, Mike, is that consent. So they know most of the people that they sitting out there at the intersections of the hood or at the shopping malls with that table set up, giving out those Obama phones. Most of those people are thirsty and hungry for a phone. They're gonna just scribble their name on some paperwork and walk away with that phone and give up 100% of the consent and everything that you would need to be privy to about what that phone's going to be doing and what information that phone's going to be sending back to the NSA.
Are most of those phones
And this is
Android? Are there most of those running on Android, or what operating system are they running on?
They run on Android and they run on something like iOS. But the point of the matter is, there's no way that they're pushing these phones onto people, but the phones are basically leaking all this sensitive information. Why?
Well, yeah. So my question is from a hacking standpoint,
yeah,
are they hitting it through the firmware on the phone, or because if it's Android that they're penetrating through, would the liability then fall on Google?
No, it relies on the manufacturer, whoever manufactured the phone, because the phone itself is separate from the operating system. So when they design the phone with the software on there, it's their responsibility to ensure that the data that's on it doesn't actually fall into the outside of the parameters of the device itself.
Right.
Think what's the name of that company? I can never pronounce them.
Huawei.
Yeah, my future love interest has a Huawei phone, and when she comes back over here from China, I actually make her turn the phone off, put the phone in the drawer. She can't have any Huawei devices on my network. She has to have something.
No,
word.
Huawei is a little bit different in the way they approach. Because if that's the case, then you can't use any phone, because most of the phones have Chinese chips in there anyways that pretty much have a backdoor to them.
You do realize Intel has back chips, and all these other US chip makers also have back doors on their chips as well.
I very much do.
Yeah, including that Netgear router you just bought.
Hey, come and get me. I need you to. If they can get me, if they can get me,
it can be the white man, not just it can be the white man, not the Chinese.
I'll put it out there like this. And there's another guy out there on YouTube who does this. I'm not a YouTuber, but I'll just say, if you can get me, I'm always up for a challenge. Just know everything that comes through this router gets logged. So if you want me, come on in. You might not make it.
Expect some clapback. That's what Cyber's saying.
Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
Challenge.
Go ahead, Josh.
Hey, what's up, guys? How y'all doing?
Chilling, bro.
Good.
Yeah, I'm glad you did that article, because that's one thing I try to push. It's privacy. There's no reason you should have your refrigerator hooked to your Wi-Fi. There's no reason you should have your toaster hooked to your Wi-Fi, so they can track everything that you do or what you got in your refrigerator when it's time to go buy groceries and all that stuff or whatever, so it can send an alert to your phone. Because these people don't update the firmware. They don't send out patches, and people can easily get into it. You see it at DEF CON all the time, where these hackers, they have games and stuff where they just hack the box or hack whatever, hack the Tesla, all these different, things that people buy or whatever with vulnerabilities in it, and the first thing they do is take it home and hook it up to the internet.
Dude, I saw an example of a dude who through the using an RF scanner through the Bluetooth, hack a bird scooter from like a quarter of a mile away from it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's why companies, that's why enterprises have some policies that disallow Bluetooth, and you have to have it provisioned through a specialized AV.
Go ahead, Josh.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, they be hacking drones as well, stealing people's drones. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, taking over the drone and just fly it back to your location or whatever.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just so much stuff out there that people hook up to the internet, or it's just pushing out a signal where it doesn't need to push out a signal. That's why I don't have any of that that new technology like the ring light. I mean, the ring thing
Oh, the
that you
ring.
put at your house
Yeah,
on the
ring.
doorbell and stuff. I don't want
Wait,
none of that
wait,
stuff,
what's that?
man, because
What's that, John? What are you talking about?
He's talking about the ring.
yeah, the ring.
The doorbell and camera system.
Yeah, because
Oh,
people can
okay.
hack those cameras,
Mhm.
and just look into your house or whatever, or look at your door, whatever, however it works. I don't
Yeah,
use none of
man.
that
I
stuff,
don't
man.
even use the what they call it, the Alexa thing, the Google thing that
Yep.
it plays your music. I've heard some crazy shit about that, man. I've heard that thing records your
Yeah,
conversations.
it
I
records
heard that there's
everything.
a story. There's a story. There's an article that said that there was this couple, they were arguing, and then it interrupted them and told them to change the subject. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
Oh shit.
Google. Yeah, they send. Google got
Yeah.
caught. Google got caught a little while back using AI to review people's conversation, what they like when you ask Google. They were
Yeah,
reviewing
they
that
use
stuff.
TensorFlow. They use TensorFlow, but all companies do that have
Yeah.
home appliances like that. They all use it.
Yep.
Apple does the same exact thing. So, and Apple has admitted to it as well. So, what I'm saying here is that um, there's no real standard right now for IoT quality control or quality assurance. There's no UL label when you buy a IoT device that says this device has been tested not to leak information. That's part of the problem in the United States. And as a matter of fact, the only judicial body that has actually addressed this is the European Union. And so what I'm saying here is that we've been working on this locally from an IoT standpoint, how to come up with better policy in which devices and what would be the standards, right? Whoever can really drive the standards will be the ones to actually write it into law. The problem is there's no regulatory body looking at any of this type of stuff. So yeah, you have California Compute and Privacy Act and Massachusetts MDPR in New York and New Jersey both have data privacy acts, but there's no real standard as how an IoT device should be designed so that it does not leak out any information. Same thing with these cell phones that the government pushes on to poor people, right? We covered an article last summer talking about this. Poor people, Black people are disproportionately impacted by their information being gathered and siphoned out illicitly through these government phones. And it may not even be the government doing this. It just may be third-party bad actors that are saying lots and lots of data in this sort of hot zone, this sort of area, because of this specific type of device. And then they go in there and just take all the information based on the apps like Facebook, Twitter that are loaded onto the phones are not updated as frequently as, like, say, an iPhone. That data gets lifted right out of there because it has vulnerabilities. There's nothing that the user can do about it. Nothing that a poor Black person can actually do about a phone that doesn't receive software updates because the manufacturer is too fucking lazy, right? Sorry, excuse my French, but that's the perspective that they're getting away with. So the manufacturer gets away with this. The government is getting away with it by pushing these phones onto poor people, and no one's being held responsible. And the victim is actually the Black person.
It's true. Very true.
All right, let me get to this next article from physics.org. How to verify quantum chips are computing correctly. Interesting. In a step toward practical quantum computing, researchers from MIT, Google, and elsewhere have designed a system that can verify when quantum chips have accurately performed complex computations that classical computers can't. Make your own 3D models. Interesting. My ADD just kicked in for a second. Quantum chips perform computations using quantum bits called qubits that can represent the two states corresponding to classical binary bits, a 0 or 1, or a quantum superposition of both states simultaneously. The unique superposition state can enable quantum computers to solve problems that are practically impossible for classical computers, potentially spurring breakthroughs in material design, drug discovery, and machine learning, among other applications. Full-scale quantum computers will require millions of qubits, which isn't yet feasible. In the past few years, researchers have started developing noisy intermediate scale quantum NISQ chips, which contain around 50 to 100 qubits. That's just enough to demonstrate quantum advantage, meaning the NISQ chip can solve certain algorithms that are intractable for classical computers, verifying that the chips perform operations as expected. However, can be very inefficient. The chip's output can look entirely random, so it takes a long time to simulate steps to determine if everything went according to plan. In a paper published today in Nature Physics, the researchers describe a novel protocol to efficiently verify that in this chip has performed all the right quantum operations. They validated their protocol on a notoriously difficult quantum problem running on a custom quantum photonic chip. As rapid advances in the industry and academia bring us to the cusp of quantum machines that can outperform classical machines, the task of quantum verification becomes time critical, says first author Jacques Carillon, a postdoc in Department of Electrical Engineering and Computer Sciences in the Research Laboratory of Electronics. Our technique provides an important tool for verifying a broad class of quantum systems, because if I invest billions of dollars to build a quantum chip, it sure better do something interesting. Yeah, this is interesting because in the PC world, with x86 chips, a lot of them do have flaws. You don't even know it. So you may be, we covered an article the other day about turning up the voltage on certain CPUs would actually cough up the cryptography keys for your blockchain or for your cryptocurrency, leaving you screwed.
You know what's interesting about quantum is that that chip, the information about that chip that they didn't mention, is probably not for the article, but you need an extreme amount of code to operate that quantum machine. It has to be basically near interstellar space zero code for it to operate. And one of the other interesting things is that when they were talking about qubits, I watched a nice little piece about that, and one of IBM's head people had mentioned that right now, something as simple as a rice grain molecule, we can't represent that in a computer program. We can't represent that as an actual piece of data with our current technology. But with qubits, it would take, I think he had mentioned, he used an analogy, is that it would take all the molecules in the earth to represent something such as like one rice grain molecule. But if we had qubits, we could basically represent hundreds of billions of those molecules. And there is where the potential for molecular redesign and science and things like that lie with different discoveries. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, you have these quantum supremacy battles going on right now. China, Russia, India, America, the Europeans. Everybody is trying to have the most powerful quantum computer that they can get. The more powerful your quantum computer is, the more likely you can break everybody's password in less than a nanosecond, right? Yeah. And so there's a race, and there's an arms race for our quantum computing, and whoever can produce the best quantum computer is the most dominant player. You add that with AI, artificial intelligence, it's game over. You can basically weaponize your military with quantum computers, because all those U.S. Navy ships, those submarines, all use antiquated algorithms for encryption. Those algorithms can be broken by just about any quantum computer today.
Google claimed that they did something first, and then I think IBM, they solved the problem. I think it took them a couple of days or a couple of hours, and I think IBM called flaw out on them and said, well, no, they had some problems with some findings, and they said this particular problem actually was done in a matter of days, and that Google kind of inflated their claims a little bit. So yeah, that sink my battleship of quantum computing is definitely happening right now.
Yeah. China has a quantum satellite in space right now. And the reason why they put it in space is because quantum computers need very cold temperatures to operate.
Yep.
And what other better place to put a quantum computer than into space where it's below zero?
Free electricity bill.
Yeah, and thermal electrics too, right? So you don't have to worry about finding a place to keep it cool. It's already cool. It'll be cool for a long time out there in space, unless somebody shoots it down, unless they find it. All right, man. Next one is from Forbes.com. Is algebra useful? Algebra is under attack these days. The most recent sally comes from Jay Matthews, an education reporter at the Washington Post, who begins his recent column, Algebra 2 Just Doesn't Add Up, by reflecting on personal experience. I got an A in Algebra 2, I think. That was long ago. I do know that I have long since forgotten whatever I learned in that course and have never used it since. Later, he explains what mathematics is useful to. I'm not going to read that. Matthew's column refers to an earlier piece by Joe Bowler, a math educator at Stanford, and Stephen Levitt, the host of popular economics podcast. In their LA Times opinion piece, modern high school mathematics should be about data science. They promote alternatives to algebra in the high school mathematics curriculum on the grounds that something other than algebra would be more useful in everyday life. We surveyed 900 Freakonomics podcast listeners, a pretty nerdy group. We must admit and discovered that less than 12% use any algebra, trigonometry, or calculus in their daily lives. Only 2% use integrals or derivatives, the foundational building blocks of calculus. In contrast, a whopping 66% work with basic analytical software like Microsoft Excel on a daily basis. So I'm not going to read this whole article, but I think that we got the gist is that how often does anybody actually use algebra?
It's not very often, but I pose a very interesting question, because let me understand if I'm getting the gist of what they're suggesting. Mm-hmm. Are they suggesting pulling it out of the lineup? And if so, if they do that, what would happen if you pulled, let's say, if you took a mathematical construct that obviously uses some form of calculus to operate, but you pull some of the rules out? If you remove algebra, you pull out some of the rules. So I don't know if that's what they're suggesting. I don't think that's a good idea. I think that, if people use algebra and they include it in their work or their life, that's fine. But I'm hoping they aren't hitting at saying, well, let's remove this. I mean, it is a building block to get up to.
If you somebody else trying to get in?
I would say for computer science, I would say algebra is when it comes to like the way I approach problem solving, algebra, having a background in algebra kind of really helps. because it kind of helps formulate that thought process towards solving the problem.
Complex, you have anything you want to add to
Yeah.
that? Oh, go ahead, Josh.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, I agree with what he just said. I mean, it kind of helps you with the whole problem solving aspect when it comes to, especially like coding. And I know it helped me when I was like writing VBA, because I don't know, it's just kind of like the way, you know, you set up the formulas. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
You can I mean, it kind of helped me. And I mean, I wasn't really, now that I think back on it, yeah, it was somewhat algebraic the way you know, I worked out some of the issues that I was trying to solve. You know what I'm saying? But
I,
I don't
I
know.
have another interesting question as I think about this from a computer science standpoint and from a basic program standpoint. What happens if they removed that? They say, oh, you don't use it. Well, a lot of people forget one of the most basic operations that's quintessential to any mathematical operation there is, Peatmas. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. If you take that out, that's basically the order of operations. So you can compute things with the computer without using the order of operations. And it'll compute, but it won't necessarily give you the right answer, as opposed to a computer that knows, oh, wait a minute, let me evaluate this as Josh was saying, let me evaluate this problem. A computer knows, oh, I need to evaluate this problem using the algebraic principle of PEMDAS, and it will work the problem out correctly. So if they were to remove that fundamental, quintessential aspect of algebra, you also remove some of the fundamental, quintessential operations that you need at higher levels of calculation. And I'm no math major, but I know better than to fiddle with that, you know.
According to the survey, though, it says that less than 12% of their polled surveyed nerds actually use it. And you know, in the opening statement of the article, it says, what he got an A in it when he when he was in high school, but when he hasn't used it since, he doesn't even understand it, doesn't remember anything. I think that there's a there when it comes to this. I think that the way that we're teaching kids at the pace that technology is transforming, I think it might be wrong. I think it might be wrong to dump algebra on them, and we don't have a place to actually implement, these algebraic expressions anywhere.
Well, the crazy part about that, Mike, they actually teaching a lot of this algebra at lower levels. Like my son is in middle school right now, and it tripped me out. He was doing basically high school algebra type questions in his class, like in his math, because I remember helping him, and a lot of the stuff started coming back um on trying to help him, you know, figure out the order of operations, as well as searching for like a variable, you know, working it out, that algebra formula, you know, that you have to follow. And that's in middle school. It just tripped me out seeing it.
Homeschool your sons, right?
Yeah, they homeschool. They go to it's affiliated with K-12. You probably heard of it.
Affiliated with K-12.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
K-12 is
similar to K-12.
Yeah, it's like K-12 is like a homeschool program. So it's a nationally recognized educational platform, but it's for homeschool. It's for homeschool kids. Kids are going to be homeschooled.
Yeah, and it's like a charter school.
I thought it was like Cash Money or something like that. I wasn't sure. I thought it was like a new artist or something like that.
Nah, they only deal with the Navy. Cash Money is an Army or a Navy. That's it.
Yeah, Cocaine Kells, do you have anything you want to add to whether or not that's useful?
No, I was just going to say that I utilized K-12, K through 12 services for my daughter as well. I only did it like for 1 year, and then I homeschooled her just without K through 12. for about 5 years. And that's all I was going to say.
Yeah, I mean, if we took algebra out of schools, man, I think a lot of Black kids would be more successful as well. At least from a public school standpoint, I think that a lot of them get left behind because there was an article we covered some time ago, and I think BGS might have covered it. Shout out to BGS. Black kids failing in in some of these critical areas, and they couldn't really understand why they were failing in these areas, while other kids may have been surpassing them. And I think that it's our culture does not really approach, these sort of legacy academic disciplines in the way that other groups do. And I think Montessori schools are actually a better approach to this, where we let them kind of run around and do their own thing.
Not really.
Wait, Kels, you don't agree with the Montessori?
No, I mean, I'm not going to say that I don't agree. What I'm going to say is that it depends on the temperament of the child. If you have a child that is one that cannot sit still, that really needs a lot more structured environment, then I will say that Montessori, it sounds like it may work, but it won't work because they do need a more structured environment. The other part is that if the kid does not want to do the work and the kid says, no, I don't want to do the work, then the kid doesn't have to do the work. And it's...
Wait, Montessori?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not necessarily if they don't want to do the work, they don't have to. What it is that they actually allow them to go to what they want to do. Right. So whatever it is that they're choosing to do, it's going to be something that's education based. Right. So they don't put anything out there in front of them that isn't relevant to like whatever like the overall lesson plan is for the day. So from that, you can go ahead, if it's not necessarily this activity over here, it's going to be this one over here. Right. So whatever they choose to do, it's going to fall in line with what it is that they're teaching for the day. Yeah.
Yes. So the reason that I homeschooled my daughter is because I tried a lot of those different programs, and then I just decided that I needed to really customize a program for my daughter based on her temperament and so forth. Montessori was one of the school choices, and so they do get a list of lessons or lesson plans that they have to complete by the end of the day. However, if you say as a child, I don't want to do this particular module, then which is the one that they need the most help on, and you focus on something that they know that they can do right away, and they'll just play around all day on that particular module versus challenging themselves to the particular lesson that they need to learn.
Now, did the instructor at the Montessori school you had her in, I mean, now, is that kind of how they ran it? It just kind of...
Well, that's my perception. And it may just be that particular school. It's just that I did not like the overall presence of the teacher versus the assistant teacher and how they were really laxy-daisy as it relates to enforcing or reinforcing the lesson plans and so forth. So while I understand that there are the grades range within that particular classroom, I think it's 3 grades at a time or 2 grades at a time, I'm not sure. It's just, for me, I guess I didn't have that type of child that where her personality would align properly with the Montessori school. So let me just say that.
Okay.
I'm done.
And then I think Judge Zilla and engineering cannabis. You guys just joined the panel.
Yeah, no, I'm still kind of a little bit in shock
In shock.
at the consideration of removing algebra.
Oh yeah. Hey Judge, that cocaine kill just made a good point. So it's like, what I wonder what would happen if, like she said, they would if the kid said, well, I don't want to do this module, I want to do the one that I know how to do. So what happens is, like, that's what module 3 out of 4. What happens when you get to module 7? And in module 7, the things that you were supposed to learn and get over the hump in module 3, you need that to solve the particular problem at 7.
Right.
But you skipped over to 4. What happens?
Right.
I think
Just
with
like,
the
just like I heard somebody else mention, right? PEMDAS, right? PEMDAS, however you repeat parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction, right? For those of us who took these classes, we understand this, we remember, right?
But the thing is, in the larger workforce environment, you're really going to use these tools. Like, I would say, if you're in the software industry, having algebra and these higher level math classes is definitely going to be helpful. But for some, like even mechanical engineering, like for a mechanical engineer that goes straight into the workforce, they're probably just sitting in an office. At that point, it's most likely just an office job.
Right, but it's a baseline. It begins a baseline understanding of abstract thought and logic.
I agree with that. Actually, I agree with that. I agree with that.
We have a math major in the chat. Join the panel,
All
math
right.
major.
I think this is preposterous. Algebra is these are the building blocks for a lot of stuff, especially in data science. You have linear algebra, you have basically linear regression analysis that's based on a linear equation. Algebra, even with computer programming, with assigning variables, it's based on algebra. You have, when you go in and say x equals to something, you are assigning a variable. So the course of trying to remove algebra, you're basically removing the building blocks of mathematics itself.
Right, even in programming, right? Even in programming, when you have to build databases, right? You're using if-then sets. You need to understand algebra to be able to set instances.
But here's the thing.
There's a math class, and I think that's engineering cannabis. I know you do machine programming. So we know that there's usually a math class that sits as a part of a larger library that has all those functions.
It's built on you have to know the basis before you jump into that one. If you're going to do linear regression, you need to know what a linear equation is.
Exactly.
If you're going to do matrix equations, you need to know how an equation is formed. You need to know what a polynomial equation is. You need to know all this before you jump into knowing how even to build a mathematical model. So to even understand what a mathematical model is, you need to know what an equation is before you jump into it.
Right, so, and even if we're not talking about tech fields, right? Just basic carpentry and sizing things out. You need to understand rise over run. You need to understand rise over run. How are you going to get to geometry if you can't get through algebra?
Yeah, but I think
you have critical thinking. So if you're able to solve complex equations and all that, you can your thinking, your ability to solve problems at an instant increases, because you can look at an equation, and if you can come up with a solution, your critical thinking skill basically increases. So algebra and all that, these are building blocks that have been used since Egyptian times to solve problems. So trying to eliminate that doesn't make sense.
If it's eliminated, what are they proposing to replace it with?
I don't think they're saying to eliminate it in this article. I think what they're saying is to combine data science or writing code within high school curriculum. Because what the article is, what I'm gathering from the article is that most of the nerds actually don't use algebra. And most of them don't even remember it. So what I'm saying here is, I think the article is saying we should incorporate more data science into the high school curriculum rather than to just teach them algebra and then
You know what?
Well, the
I
building
agree with
blocks of
I
data
agree with
science is
that.
algebra. The building blocks
Hey,
of
but
data science is algebra.
I guess what he's
hey,
saying
but
though, I guess
guys,
what he's getting,
but
I guess what he's saying though is that, because look, I'll be real with you. I can't remember shit from algebra, man. I gotta be real with you. You know, I can't really think about how I applied algebra really. You know, just as an exclusive mathematical concept. Now, I do agree with the notion that maybe what it is that you teach it in conjunction with something, so that it has more of a purposeful context to it.
let's
Like I said, I'll tell you like this again. Just in my general day-to-day, not only my day-to-day life, but just as a career, man, I can't really think about a time where I've actually used algebra. Like,
but
I forgot that shit as soon as I passed it.
it's just one thing though we missing though is, I mean, the article, what they're basically talking about is algebra 2, which is the most, I mean, the more advanced version of algebra, so they will still get the basic concepts of algebra that you will learn at the base level. So I mean, they'll still
You
get
still
that.
need, that's the problem. You still need every part of that
It's
because
verbose. It's very verbose.
because
That's why people don't
for
like it.
instance, algebra 1, algebra 2, they don't deal with the real life aspects of what's going on around us. It's when you start dealing with calculus and dealing with dynamic equations, then you start applying real life circumstances. But you need to understand what's going on first with building basically your basic understanding of math. Then you can go into the higher to calculus, where you look at dynamic equations, how to deal with integrations. You start with what you know, a constant, a baseline, then you build on it. And that's how you learn math. And that's how everybody should learn math. And that's how you become good with math.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's saying to take out algebra from the equation. Can you mute yourself, brother? I don't think anybody's saying take math out of the equation. I just think that the article is saying it needs to incorporate more of the modern technologies into the math curriculum, such as data science and actually writing code. I mean, I might use algebra for like risk calculations in terms of cybersecurity, but that's probably 1% of the year that I may do something like that. And now that you have software programs that automatically do all this with AI, you kind of don't really need to do much at that level.
So
with a Judge
Let
Zilla,
me ask this. Do you guys feel that this is
hold on a second. Hold on a second. Judge Zilla has his hand raised, and then we got to go to Dr. Phoenix.
So I'll take very quickly, no more than 60 seconds here. So okay, you don't really. I believe that this is one of those things where you don't understand how much you use it because it's an underlying operating system, right? It's a blind operating system.
Amen. Amen.
Secondarily, because look, we have examples in this real life sphere, this manosphere, of people who cannot understand what statistics mean and continuously distort them because they don't understand the underlying premise for the algorithms or the equations used to form the data sets that make up those statistics. To even begin to understand statistics, we all went through this, right? You have to take calculus, right? The prereq before you can take statistics is calculus. Yep. Because you have to understand how variables impact the equations.
Yeah, 80% of Black men don't take care of their kids.
You know,
because 80% of Black women are single mothers, right?
you know, like
holy shit.
My question is this, brothers? Do you feel
hold on. Just
you have to wait because Judge Zilla is trying to finish up, and then we have to go to Dr. Phoenix. He had his hand raised.
So, and that's my main thing. If you're saying that this is going to be the equivalent of removing cursive and applying and applying, because most things are done by text and type, I understand because you're incorporating more tech devices in it. But if you only have 12 years, you have 12 years, right? What are you going to learn in that 12 years? Are you going to max out on learning what a 10% sale means? You have all this time. You have all of this time to learn this math.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't understand why it's again, you can't make somebody learn and that's the bottleneck. It's not their inability to comprehend it's the ability for the wherewithal to learn the material.
Is it the bottleneck, or are they half in the bottle?
So I mean, sometimes it's a bottleneck, but it's sometimes a bottleneck. But if it's at a bottleneck, that's usually observable well before you would think that they would need to use anything more than algebra anyway.
All right, let's go to Dr. Phoenix real quick.
Yeah, I actually pulled what you were saying a few moments ago, Mike. That's what I get. It sounds like they're looking to augment algebra with data science courses, which I would completely agree with that. But to engineering cannabis point, yeah, algebra is a fundamental math. I mean, you need it in everything. I mean, we use it in medicine. My original background was in chemistry, so obviously you use it in general chemistry. It would be very difficult for you to take a general chemistry 2 class if you never taken algebra, because a lot of the equations, the stoichiometry, stuff like that, you're manipulating a lot of variables, you're doing a lot of conversions. So I mean, those are basic skills that you learn along with cross multiplying. And in medicine, you're always manipulating certain known equations, the gas laws, how you manipulate it, how it takes an effect in the body. There are various equations that have been designed around your lung capacity, even how all the way down to their equations that we use in medicine to determine how when the first cancer cell developed in your body. So I mean, and a lot of these have very much a algebraic background, as well as the fact that I've taken quite a bit of math in my life, and I've taken stats, and I can tell you right now, when you're taking stats, once you start to really get up there, get some of those higher level stat courses, a lot of it becomes very calculus based. You do a lot of calculus and stats when you start to take those higher level stat courses. So I'll just leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. Who else is next? We got Wesley has his hand up. Let's go to Wesley.
Is he there?
Yeah, Wesley, you there?
Oh, I was talking on mute. My bad.
Go ahead.
So yeah, like if remembering from my college days, which weren't too far away, is that like calculus, pretty much all of calculus and differential equations is all based on algebra. And the way that data science is moving, it's like with automation, you have data science engines that are basically going in there, gathering all this data and spitting out analytics on that data. So the future of data science is going to be more heavily math focused. So if you don't understand algebra, you're not going to be part of that next generation of data analytics. That's all I wanted to say.
All right, Mr. City, you got 60 seconds.
Oh no, I think you guys addressed the brother addressed it when he said that the article leaned more towards combining algebra, I guess, with data science information.
Yep.
So yeah, my question was answered.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I just think you should be coming out of 12 years of education with more than a basic understanding that if you take 2 whole pizzas and you cut one and you cut one into 6 slices and you cut one into 8 slices, the 6 slice pizza isn't less pizza.
What if they just eat the crust?
I mean, even if you were to look at the national stats for math competencies among Black children, specifically Black boys, they're absolutely atrocious.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, the fundamental point of making sure that kids learn algebra so that they learn these very basic foundations of dealing with numbers and manipulation of variables and manipulation of numbers. I mean, that is the very general sense of why you take algebra, so they can have that very base foundation, and then you can build off of that. But unfortunately, we know that for most Black children, they do not get that foundation, which is why they struggle from the outset.
I think a lot of kids, and I'll just be real brief, a lot of kids really need one-on-one. And that is something that one-on-one interaction, because obviously they're learning at a different pace. But I think that you will find that they're more accepting and open to really, really learning what they need to know if it's on a one-on-one basis. But I know that's hard to do.
Mhm.
But I have just found that works better, even though obviously in real life, nobody's going to hold your hand. But the very basic fundamentals of what they need to learn, I think is important to really kind of drill that in.
Mhm.
Well, I think that's hard to do if the parents are not what they're trying to teach.
Say that one more time.
Well, I think that's very difficult to do if the parents do not are not what they're trying to teach. You cannot try to teach your children the math, algebra, or whatever math you pick if you yourself do not know how to do that and have not lived that. You know, if you don't have that background, if you just, if you look at the average jobs that Black folks do, they use very little math, if at any at all.
Yeah, there's a lot of labor.
Well, actually, I was assuming that, a qualified person would work with that student on a one-on-one basis. And I mean, you'll find that too, there are a lot of teachers that will actually come to your home. And even if it's like 1 hour, 2 hours, they will work with your child each day on a one-on-one basis on the classes that they really need assistance on. And it's not a lot of money. It's just really finding that teacher that connects with the student.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but I also believe too that fundamentally what happens to a child is still the responsibility of parents. They still going to spend majority of their time with their parents. So if the parents are not reinforcing whatever the child is learning in an academic environment, it doesn't do the child any good.
Right.
It doesn't help them. It doesn't do the child any good. It doesn't help them, because I mean, I can say from my own experience that my parents weren't able to help me beyond algebra. Um, and again, I took calculus in high school, so I didn't take it in college. Well, I ended up taking it again in college, but that's because I took a break. But that was from that point. That was looking for myself. That was looking at solutions manuals and figuring out what I did wrong.
Right. But I mean, I guess as a parent, I'm saying that, even though it is not the parent per se instilling the curriculum or the particular subject, they are still making sure that the particular child is being educated outside of school.
Right.
So, I mean, I personally would not think that parents would, know what up-to-date math and how they're framing the formulas and doing long division and so forth, how all of that has changed. So, I mean, to me, it doesn't really matter who teaches the kid. If the parent is still involved because they're taking the steps to make sure that their child is properly educated outside of class, then I think that that's sufficient.
Well, you kind
And
of
I
see
agree
that.
with you.
You kind of see that with Common Core, because with the Montessori, what they did was they took the Common Core requirements, right, and then they overlaid it with the Montessori method. So the kids really couldn't, they were able to kind of naturally pick up Common Core, right? But if you've ever read any like Common Core just materials, I mean, as you know, Gen Xers and shit who came up in school in the 80s and stuff, like we're reading this and we're just like, dude, how are you guys teaching kids how to learn math? And they're trying to entrain them with this algorithmic way of thinking about numbers. So I see where Kels is coming from, because I would look at Common Core material and I would just be like, I don't understand why you're having my daughter add up numbers like this, right? Until I spoke with the school administrator, and when she gave me the explanation, then it was like I understood. But I would, yeah, I don't think the average like adult can understand Common Core the way it's. If you look at just base Common Core material, you're kind of left like, what the hell?
Yeah, I agree.
Go ahead, Josh.
No, I was just gonna say I agree with you guys what you're saying, because I kind of fell into that as well. Trying to help my son with the new way that they're teaching math. But one thing we can leverage as parents, and I talk about this, when it comes to IT and everything, YouTube. There's a bunch of people out there with videos on how to actually. So I had to watch a couple videos just to actually understand how they were doing it in the new way that they're doing, like certain parts of math, to teach myself how to actually teach them. So I mean, you can leverage that as well, because
yeah, I mean, I've done it all. That's why I'm kind of well versed at bumping my head against the wall when it comes to finding the right program for my daughter. But at the same time, yes, I mean, we've utilized the YouTube experience as it relates to teaching, and it has helped in certain courses. Certain courses, no. So it's just a matter of staying in tune with your child, understanding how he or she learns, and then add, or I'm sorry, what am I trying to say?
Supplement it.
Yes. I'm reading something and then trying to talk at the same time. But yeah, I mean, that's essentially what I did.
Okay. And I don't agree with any. I don't agree. I don't disagree with anything that Kels has brought up here. But just the asshole in me a little bit is just in 12 years of education, 12 years worth of education. Is this the low line? Is this the low watermark that we're going to reach?
In regards to what?
No, he's literally talking about like sort of reducing our math competency by removing or changing it in a way, I guess, where it makes it, I guess, Judge, and you can correct me if I'm wrong.
I think it's watering it down.
I think it's say your interpretation is that they're trying to make it more palatable, I guess.
Right. My interpretation is that they see that a lot of kids aren't passing, and a lot of adults are saying, "Hey, I don't use it in my everyday life anyway. So what does it matter if they're not passing?" And my point is that's not the point. The point of it, the pure point of an academic education is not necessarily how much of it you apply in your everyday life,
or if everything should be doable,
100% utilizable.
Right.
I think one angle that I see as if we take that route, not to pull it out, but to say, well, a certain class of people don't need to use it. What does that do to another class of individuals who are your engineering class? That makes them king. That makes them rulers.
I was about to say, it puts them miles ahead of you.
That puts us, those of us who
further back,
extremely mathematically inclined, to say, well, there are certain things that can't be done by certain groups of people.
Well, no, I'm passionate about this because I'm not mathematically inclined. I had to bust my ass to get through those classes.
Yeah, same.
My math lab is a savior to me.
I'm just smart enough to tell the computer what to do the math for me.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I do think there has been a push to kind of thumb down math education in this country, and hence this is why this country suffers from a lack of STEM grads. You know, if you cannot introduce children to math concepts when they're young, which is what happens in countries like China and India, where they're 4 and 5 years old and they're getting introduced to math concepts that kids would not normally see until they were in their, you know, preteens.
Yeah.
And so this is why, you know, kids will be proficient in it if you introduce it to them at the right ages, and it has to be early in life. Again, if that critical age of development is from the womb to about 5-6 years of age, and whatever you introduce in that period will become their foundation.
Hey Mike, we have a question. I don't know if this was touched on. Says Black Marine Trust, how important do you think social skills are in relationship to the advanced skills such as math and science? I ask because I've met many great engineers, but they often lack the basic social skills to communicate and or connect on a basic level. It's a good question.
No, that's pretty normal. Asperger's and other learning disabilities, not learning disabilities, but social disabilities actually seems to aid those people. If you look at like most of your technology gurus from Silicon Valley, a lot of them had they were socially awkward or introverted, but they were brilliant thinkers, right, by themselves. If you leave them to their own devices, they can do extraordinary things. So I think that it depends on the environment and also the culture. You know, if you come from a predominantly impoverished environment and you know you're being subjected to a lot of other external adverse childhood experiences, you may be very unlikely to actually be efficient in some of these mathematical areas.
I'm glad you bring that up.
Go ahead, Dr. Phoenix.
No, I'm just gonna say I'm glad you bring up the ACEs, because this is something that does need to get delved into, because this actually explains a lot of the dysfunction and really just outright failures of Black children in the 21st century. Why young Black people cannot compete, because you're dealing with cumulative. How can I put this? You're dealing with cumulative social traumas, if you will. And this becomes the very foundation of who these people grow into as adults. So
yeah, I just, you know, again, if this is like taking cursive out of the curriculum because it no longer serves a real purpose, I'm cool, you know. But or if it's like, but if this is just the watering down of the subject matter, I don't see how this is actually going to help anything, except for the numbers of graduations, except to increase the percentage of graduation rates, because the education level has been watered down.
Wait, Judge, did you say you were okay with them taking cursive out?
Yes.
Yeah, because we don't actually write anything anymore. Everything is you know, biometrically applied, right?
I think it's still like one of
the, you still learn how to write. You just don't need to learn how to write cursive.
Yeah, it's not really necessary.
I thought it was, well, no, I don't know. I made sure.
Some hieroglyphics, that's a different story. I think that should be taught.
plus, to be fair, it seems like most people didn't take the same class anyway when you try to read other people's cursive handwriting.
Right, you can't read it.
I don't know. I'm actually a cursive dude. I write in kind of like a weird sort of half cursive, half graffiti.
I do the same.
Yeah, graffiti scarred my handwriting. So,
yeah, that's what I'm saying. My graffiti fucked my shit all up. But so I mask it with cursive.
I had a teacher who was my basketball coach in 8th grade, Mr. Hunt, and he was our reading teacher. He was the school's only reading teacher, so you had to get through him to go through all other routes, and he forced it. He had, I remember, Mr. Hunt had that had the American cursive alphabet, you know, around the top of the class as it would be in front of the board wrapping around. And he required that every single paper, every letter that you wrote on that paper for any assignment that you had for his class had to be in 100%. It had to look like the cursive that was on the chart. If it did not look like the cursive that was on the chart, you got a demerit for it. If you deviated from the cursive that was on the chart, you would ultimately fail the class. If you failed this class, you would not pass the 8th grade.
Yeah, but Cyberdyne, I mean, nowadays, well, we grew up in a different time because
I'm just telling you,
we were writing. Yeah, and I'm just saying this in general. I was just using you because you was the last person speaking. But we living in a different time now. I didn't take typing classes or computer classes until I was in high school. Like my kids, everything they're doing on a computer, they've been doing since elementary school.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's totally different. That's why I agree. You know, I mean, I don't force my kids to write in cursive at all. I mean, because most of the stuff is done either on a computer. Now they do know how to write, you know, the normal, you know, letters, but cursive, it's really no point unless you, I mean, a signature.
Well,
That's the
I would say this cursive writing,
which is faster.
Well, cursive writing is an indicator of class. So it's not a social requirement, but it is a social marker. So in that regard, I damn sure made sure my daughter knows how to write cursive.
Well, somebody has a lot of feedback.
Yeah, somebody does. Is that me?
Okay, complex. You figured me out. What I'm actually trying to do is I'm trying to shrink the market so my calligraphy business will take off.
You know what? I learned how to draw in calligraphy when I was in 4th grade. Actually.
So Mike,
I'm not saying that there's no benefits to cursive.
I'm take a fountain pen to school when I was in the 6th grade.
Yeah, I'm not saying that there aren't any benefits to cursive. I'm just saying, you know, effectively you could still get there's no effective real change from using block letters to cursive.
No, it's not. It's a class marker though. It is that. Like if you can.
I don't know because I keep journals and I write
in my doctors. Your best doctor in chicken scratch.
Right, and you write in cursive, right? And again, it's likely, right? It's all depending on the methodology that you use, right? If you've become accustomed to writing in cursive, obviously you're going to write faster in cursive. If I've become accustomed to writing in block letters, and again, I do have a dog in this fight because I'm dyslexic and it's easier for me to use block letters. But I actually write faster. I actually do and did write faster in cursive. Mm-hmm. And I don't have the same problems, but it's just not quite as legible as my block letter writing is. And so the effective means of communication, of transmission of information, is thwarted if somebody has to sit there for twice as long to figure out what I wrote.
Hey, Mike, Kels wanted you to revisit a point you were making. Kels, Mike, you were making a point because she wanted to follow up on a point you were making.
I'm not sure what she might be referring to. There's quite a few points.
I'm sorry, I was eating. It was the last point that you made. I just didn't hear it. But if you forgot, that's fine. You don't have to answer.
No, I was just gonna make the point that the learning discipline has not changed over the last 150 years, and because technology is accelerating, it's not keeping pace. The learning disciplines are not keeping pace, and I think BGS calls it help me out, Judge. You remember he says this learning style.
What the Prussian school system?
Yeah, the Prussian school system. So that's not keeping pace with the advancement of technology. You know, if you look at the toddlers, they pick up a tablet like an iPad or something like that, and Apple has mastered the UX design to a point where a toddler can figure it out in one day.
It's just totally intuitive.
Yeah. So if they can figure out a tablet one day and they can't even write their name in cursive or even something as basic as writing their name, it's, you know, you have to take into consideration that the technology is moving too fast for, you know, for them to even, you know, be worried about algebra. They don't even, it's almost an afterthought.
So Mike,
yes, sir.
In terms of the article, is the article talking about augmenting the space to basically create more jobs for data scientists, or are we augmenting the whole space to create people who think Because if it's going to change the curriculum to basically put more data science application in, then we're just creating people for jobs.
No, I think the idea here is to incorporate the modern and future proofing of data science and actually programming rather at the beginning rather than at the end, right? And so we covered an article earlier that talked about IoT security, right? A lot of the time when they design IoT, security is an afterthought, right? So what we've been talking about is incorporating security at the beginning of the design rather than adding it at the end. Incorporating data science and programming at the beginning rather than waiting until they get to the end.
Right.
Yeah, it's very hard to
evolutionary.
teach somebody on the back end something. It really is.
Yeah, it's just not, it's
Yeah, and
efficient.
then considering how quickly technology is moving, you're talking about introducing concepts like that to a kid just walking into undergrad. You're in your first semester undergrad, and now you're getting introduced to this level of math that you should have probably gotten introduced to in middle school, but you're seeing it as an undergrad for the first time. Yeah, and your peers most likely have been doing this for years. If you remember, I talked about me being a McNair scholar. If you go back and read his if you listen to his story, there was a segment, I want to say 60 Minutes did many years ago about him, and it talked about how he felt as a physics. He was going into undergrad as a physics major, and by the time he got to undergrad, he felt just so inadequate because he was around all these other white folks, these white males who had been taking classical physics and stuff like that, string theory, going back when they were in middle school and high school, and he just felt completely out of place, and he actually changed his major from physics to music. So this is why this is important of reinforcing these concepts of math and education at a very early age, and why parents cannot get it. Why Black folks who are parents, you cannot get away from the fact that in the 21st century, every job of any significant importance that's going to give you any modicum of a decent life is going to have a level of math that's going to go beyond your high school level.
Yeah, I just don't want this to be a rehash of the Ebonics as a second language thing.
I don't think it would never be that.
Hell.
It would. I don't think it would ever be that. I just think that what happens now is that
what happened was oh, man.
But go ahead, Mike. Go ahead, brother.
All right, let me get to the next article from fastcompany.com. Cigna will now let you go to the doctor on your phone. For 12 million people covered by covered by the health insurer, your annual primary care checkup will now be available via video chat. We covered this with Dr. Phoenix about a month or so ago. Health insurance company Cigna is launching a new video-based primary care service that will reach over 12 million people. The company is partnering with MD Live, which already provides telehealth services to several hospitals, including Humana and some locations of Blue Cross Blue Shield. However, this is the first time it has waded into primary care due to fears that a whole generation of doctors will soon be retiring. Dr. Phoenix has covered this before, reducing the supply of available doctors and therefore appointments. There is an increasing push for the medical community to conduct as many medical visits as possible online or at home. As it is, doctors feel overextended in their day-to-day practice, and burnout is recognized as a pervasive problem in the industry. Unless in-person presence is absolutely necessary, virtual care has the promise of making individual appointments more efficient, freeing up doctors' time. Dr. Phoenix has talked about the burnout issue and people leaving the practice prematurely. It is also a lot more convenient for patients. According to a 2019 Accenture survey, 29% of the respondents said they use virtual care, up from 21% 2 years ago. Cigna has been working with MD Live and its platform of 1,300 physicians for the past 5 years on a 24/7 online urgent care services. The insurer has now added MD Live's therapy and behavioral sciences to its client benefits and will roll out primary care in April. The hope is that by putting services online, Cigna will be able to get members who historically have not gone to the doctor to finally go. This should include Black men, since they are some of the demographics disproportionately impacted by not seeing a primary care doctor. There's a whole portion of our population not seeking any care. We do need to find convenient and affordable ways for those patients to be accessing care, says Julie McCarter, head of product solutions at Cigna. The deal between Cigna and MD Live comes at a time when virtual care may finally be hitting the mainstream. It took us 9 years through May of 2018 to do 1 million visits, says MD Live CEO Rich Berner. We did 900,000 just last year. So I'm not gonna read this whole thing because I don't think it's necessary. But Dr. Phoenix, you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, I just want to answer an engineering cannabis question really quickly. I've actually covered this before. We covered this a few times before, but he asked how would vitals be collected. It's quite simple, and actually the CVS Minute Clinic has a pretty good model for what they do. So if anyone's familiar with the Minute Clinics, you can go in there. It's like an urgent care type service. You can go in there for primary care services and stuff like that. But they're all staffed by nurse practitioners, and typically they do telehealth too. And so typically how it does is that they will have a nurse practitioner in one location, and then you will have a nurse in the location with the patient. So they'll be with the patient, and typically whatever's going on with the patient when they're going through the assessment, if for example if a patient had a strep throat, they will actually have a little tube or scope, if you will, and you can and it has a camera on it, and it will go down. You can kind of slide into the patient's mouth, and you can kind of look around, and the camera, so whatever the camera sees, the nurse practitioner sees on his or her monitor on the other end. And so that's one way you can get that's one way you can do it. The other way too is that you can have your vitals. Your vitals can be transmitted just digitally. So if anyone's ever been in a hospital or specifically an ICU setting, your vitals are monitored, not just in the ICU, but you have a telehealth. All ICUs are remotely monitored by critical care specialists. So usually an intensivist and some critical care nurses who will monitor. So if anytime anything happens, that's one way you can do it, if that answers your question. So, but I think we pretty much covered this many a times, brother. I don't think I need to add any more today.
I wanted to point out something. In there it said 29%. It's 29% this year, up from 21% 2 years ago, I think it said. So that would mean that's a total of 50%. So by those numbers, I've gathered that half of the people in the world are in the country are actually using the service.
Yeah.
Do you see why we need algebra?
I mean that is true. If you're already,
it's not true at all. It's not true at all.
I mean, what I'm getting at is that for the most part, if you already have a primary care provider, for example, and the reason why this article is really important and it talks about the burnout, because if you think about the average patient panel a primary care provider has, it's somewhere between 1,500 to even upwards of 3,000, patients. So one provider may have damn near 3,000 patients.
Yeah,
you'll see over a year. And so when you think about, you've done this for years and years, and now on top of that, you have to see all these patients. You might see about maybe about 40. Some that are really good, they might see upwards of 50 patients a day. And then now you got to go back and do all this damn paperwork for CMS. So you got to make sure you get your codes, you get your billing codes right, because you get it wrong, you'll be wrapped up with them for months trying to get it fixed and
getting claims denied.
So I mean, this is part of the reason too why you see that burnout, is because most physicians in general, your primary care docs in general, they spend probably about half of their time doing paperwork.
Yeah, no, Dr. Phoenix, Dr. Phoenix, I apologize. I was just
No,
using it
I know you're
as
being
a
tongue in
method
cheek. It's
to
cool, man.
to beat a dead horse.
No, I know you're being tongue in cheek. It's cool, but I did just want to highlight that because I think that is, because even it was last week I was reading an article in Yahoo. They were talking about it. There was like massive burnouts now among nurses, and it stands to be the case. Why? Because again, when you see the same types of people in the same outcomes, again, you just kind of get really desensitized to the patients and so on and so forth, and you do that over years, and then you're having to deal with. CMS is a bitch. Let's just be honest here. Anyone that's in healthcare, they tell you you deal with billing. That's why the billing departments of hospitals are usually the largest departments, because you just have to have so many people involved with just trying to deal with CMS and making sure you get billing codes right. Because if you do mess it up, you may never get reimbursed for that patient visit.
Now, those are all, they still use the, what is it, the ICD-9?
The ICD-10, yep.
Or is it 10 now?
Yes, it's ICD-10, yeah, it's now.
Yeah, like when I was like years ago, dude, in my early 20s and shit, like I worked for HealthNet. I was a claims examiner for them. So it was ICD-9 at the time. So it was ICD-9 and there was the other one, lab. What's the lab codes? There's the lab codes and then there's the ICD-9 codes.
Yeah, I can't remember those, but yeah, it's just so much. It's just so much paperwork wrapped up with that, and so again, and that's part of the reason too. When you're dealing with a patient population where chronic disease is really prevalent, so you're dealing with folks, who got diabetes, they got hypertension, some form of cardiovascular disease, I don't know, maybe atrial fibrillation, something. And so, just having to manage those patients. And again, a lot of those patients have what we call comorbid conditions. And so, you just kind of, a lot of these patients, they're not acutely ill, but they just need to be monitored. They need to be just kind of, they need to see someone on a regular. So, a good example would be a diabetic. So if you're a diabetic patient, you have to get a hemoglobin A1C test. And so if you're diabetic, you should be getting that at least every 3 to 4 months. And so instead of you having to make a long drive to a clinic or hospital, whatever, to get it, maybe you might be able to go to a local clinic, maybe a mini clinic, for example, and you can have it done there. And then they can follow up with you through a telehealth appointment afterwards, and kind of go over the results with you and kind of explain where you're at, and then formulate if your hemoglobin A1C is not at normal levels, formulate a plan with you through a telehealth conference, for example, where they can be able to, we can work with you on that. So,
hey, Dr. Phoenix, can I ask you a question right fast?
What's going on?
With that actual online health service, or
Telehealth?
the MD Live, yeah. Do you think it'll include like therapists and counselors?
Oh yeah. That's actually a great
anything
question.
Billable, anything that can be coded.
Yeah, that's a great question. Absolutely. This is probably the biggest application of telehealth is actually in the field of mental health, because
and the least liable, right?
Well, there's always liability. That's never going to change. But just in general, making mental health more widely available to people, and specifically, for something like Black folks.
Would you say, Mike?
Telepsych.
Yeah, exactly.
Telepsych. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason I asked that question, because my wife is disabled, but she went to school to be a counselor. She just hasn't taken the test to be certified. So she has a master's degree and all that stuff. But I don't want to get into the all the personal details, but my wife is disabled, and she has all the credentials. She just can't work at the sites because of what's going on.
Accessibility issues, right?
Yeah.
Mike and I have had a few hangouts on this, brother, and we talked about Black folks starting up telehealth practices. I
think that was one of the first telemedicine.
Yeah,
hangouts specifically for telemedicine.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a. I mean, I would certainly recommend that she should try a hand at that. She can, you usually have to get certified through to to be billable to CMS. You have to get certified through them as a. You have to have an MPI number, which is basically all providers, they have this number. This allows you to bill. This allows you to bill for your services.
Yeah, I was going to say too, and just from a human resources standpoint, I mean, as far as like EEOC regulations as it relates to equal opportunity and stuff like that, disability in with that regard, maybe working, applying her credentials, in a profession where she can work. It's like a work from home profession, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she would have either equal to or probably added benefits and protections from EEOC, from an EEOC standpoint.
Denied disabled.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I was like, no.
Yeah, is your wife a veteran by any chance?
Nah, she's not. She's not.
Well,
but still,
I mean,
even if she's not, I mean,
and she can't file for disability because I make too much money, obviously. So
just quit your job and quit your job and start doing Phoenix live stream for super chats.
Nah, I'm good.
Hit that super chat button.
Hit that super chat.
Get the bag, man.
No, in all honesty, but I think it's something that you and her should explore, man.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, yep. We talked about this a few times on various hangouts where this is a major area of opportunity for Black folks. In fact, I was talking with someone maybe about a week or two ago, and they were thinking about starting up a telepractice, and they do like cardiology consults, just doing stuff like that. I mean, you can think that there's not a whole lot of areas where telehealth would not be applicable.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, especially in the areas of counseling, if you're a therapist, if you're a therapist, especially if you're one that prescribe meds, a lot of times you're just doing med management. So, you can just see a patient through a telehealth setting, through an app, whatever, maybe spend, maybe about 30-40 minutes talking with them, kind of, reassessing them and see where they're at along the treatment plan, and then just kind of continue the treatment as is. And so, these are all things you can do, bro, that she can do. So yeah, I think you guys should explore that. And with your background, man, you can definitely be a big help to her.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, let me get to this next item on the docket from Reuters. Health warning: how Fitbits can help predict flu outbreaks. This is new. The Fitbit on your wrist not only counts your steps and minutes of sleep, it can also help tell if you're coming down with the flu and warn health authorities to get ready to help. A study in the United States has found that heart rate and sleep data from wearable fitness tracker watches can predict and alert public health officials to real-time outbreaks of flu more accurately than current surveillance methods. The study used data from more than 47,000 Fitbit users in 5 U.S. states. The results, published in the Lancet Digital Health Journal, show that by using Fitbit data, statewide predictions of flu outbreaks were improved and accelerated. The World Health Organization estimates that as many as 650,000 people worldwide die of respiratory diseases linked to seasonal flu each year. Traditional surveillance reporting takes up to 3 weeks, meaning response measures such as deploying vaccines or antivirals and advising patients to stay at home can often lag. Responding more quickly to influenza outbreaks can prevent further spread and infection. And we were curious to see if sensor data could improve real-time surveillance, said Jennifer Radin, who co-led that study at the U.S. Scripps Research Translational Institute. Previous studies using crowdsourced data, such as Google Flu Trends and Twitter, have experienced variable success. Partly, experts say, because it is impossible to separate out behavior of people with flu from people who search online about it due to more media and public attention during outbreaks. For this study, Radin's team de-identified data from 200,000 people whose Fitbits track activity, heart rate, and sleep for at least 60 days during the March 2016 to March 2018 study period. From the 200,000, 47,248 users from California, Texas, New York, Illinois, and Pennsylvania wore a Fitbit consistently during the period. The average age was 43 and 60% were female. Users' resting heart rate and sleep duration were monitored and flagged as abnormal if the average weekly heart rate was significantly above their overall average and their weekly average sleep was not below their overall average. This data was compared to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control's weekly estimates for flu-like illness. This is a lot of data science, man, involved in this.
It's a hell of a lot, man.
I mean, you would have to really, really narrow that type of stuff down. 650,000. I mean, that's just.
Now you know what an epidemiologist does.
Yep. And you know, brother Q497 in the chat, I really wish you'd get up on the panel, bro. But he had sent me this device to check out, to Wearable. And what this thing does is it modulates your body temperature. So like where they're going with wearables and like the type of data they can track in terms of your biophysiology and how your body's functioning, you know, it's like having a real-time activity monitor on your body.
Right. Well, I guess the numbers are throwing me off. Because yes, 650,000 is a large number. But when they say worldwide, so you're talking about roughly 7 billion as a percentage base of population, right? It's not that high.
Well, there's not a lot of people that have Fitbits, so they only can gather from people that actually have Fitbits with them.
True.
Yeah, but they're using Fitbit as just a example. But you take in the Apple Watch, which has the best sensors on the market. That watch does not work without the iPhone itself. So they're going to get real-time updates because it's constantly connected to the phone. The phone will push that data up to whatever public health organization of that locality. And they
Mike, the Fitbits is on that. Wait, I know now the Apple Watch is only the Fitbits. It's the same. It's only working with the iPhone.
No. I'm saying that the Apple Watch only works with the iPhone, right?
Oh no, but Fitbit works with all others,
Fitbit
right?
does not send the data fast enough because it has to wait till it connects over Bluetooth to the.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Apple Watch can do it
in real time.
Yeah, real time.
Right, but the data that was provided in there it didn't say that they tracked 650,000. What it said is that approximately 650,000 suffer from respiratory illnesses, and complications to cause death. Right? Is that if I'm remembering the data, the paragraph correctly?
I was looking at I thought the article said that it, based on the amount of Fitbit users, the sample of Fitbit users in these states.
Hey, Mike, you know, now that I think about it, dude, with the new Watch OS 6, so the ECG, the heart monitor app, can send notifications to your doctor in real time too. It can literally, like, as soon as you start having like a
Apple's the only company validated by the Food Drug Administration to actually use that device for that purpose.
Didn't somebody else just buy out Fitbit too? Buy Fitbit up?
Google.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Google has a major health initiative on their hands for wearables.
So you think they're going to let Apple corner this?
No. This is an all open market now.
Yeah.
I mean, the market is wide open. I mean, it's not just wrist watches where we're seeing this at. I mean, this is virtually everything. I mean, again, a lot of stuff. What you're seeing now is that really a lot of stuff is carrying over from from a clinical environment, and it's going out because, like I was saying before about ICUs, how they're monitored 24/7. They're remotely monitored. So not only do you have your nurses and physicians that are on the floor in those ICUs, but they're monitored by nurses. Patients within ICUs are remotely monitored by physicians and nurses in these telehealth centers, and so all of the machines that patients are hooked up to is transmitting data in real time. So you're getting everything from their O2 levels to their pulse to their blood pressure to their temp. So you're getting this is being updated constantly. So you're seeing terabytes of data being generated.
And Huawei has them beat to the punch because their Huawei watch actually has a 4G modem in it, or 4G radio, I should say, in it. So it's independent of the phone itself. So it's constantly
it doesn't need the phone.
No, that's where Apple is lacking. And I think that they have a difficult
Wait,
time.
Apple has an LCE modem on their watch.
Oh, what?
The Apple Watch does have an LCE modem.
But what it can't do is it can't work independently. It can't work independently of the phone, though.
Well, I think Huawei can leverage that kind of technology because they're one of the biggest makers of radios, cellular radios in the world.
Right. But prior to that, Apple did not have that, right? So if you look at the study, the study goes back a couple of years, but the fact that Huawei has beat them to the punch is something that to take into consideration. But Samsung is also a major player now in healthcare in terms of wearables as well. It's you also have to take into consideration that I think it's Tesla can determine whether or not you're sleep apnea and things like that while you're driving the car. Man, it could actually alert the authorities if you get like a diabetic shock or something like that. Diabetic shock,
heart attack.
Yeah. Let me get to this next article. This one is from TechCrunch.com. Google acquires Pointy, a startup to help brick and mortar retailers list products online. Interesting.
Wait,
Google
what?
Google has been on a long-term mission to build inroads into the world of e-commerce by working more closely with brick and mortar retailers. And now it looks like it plans to extend that work a little further. The search giant is acquiring Pointy, a startup of Dublin, Ireland, which has built hardware and software technology to help physical retailers, specifically those that might not already have an extensive e-commerce storefront, detailed in-store inventory, get their products discoverable online without any extra work. The companies are not disclosing the financial terms of the deal, but a source tells us it is 147 million euros or $163 million US. We're told that Google will be making a formal announcement in about an hour, but Pointy has already posted the news on its own site while we were digging around for details after getting pinged by a source. The deal is expected to close in the coming weeks, pending customer closing conditions. Pointy is continuing to operate post-acquisition. We look forward to building even better services in the future, but with the backing of Google's resources and reach, the company writes. It's not clear yet who will stay on with that plan. A source notes that this was a good outcome because Pointy has a one-of-a-kind product that didn't really have any comparables in the market. Pointy had also managed to pick up quite a lot of traction as a small startup, working with around 10% of all physical retailers in the US. In certain categories, pets and toys were two of those, I was told. Pointy is 6 years old and had raised just under $20 million from a variety of investors, including Frontline Ventures. This is going to be interesting.
So let me get this straight.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah.
No. So I think I understand what Pointy does. So those there's been a few of them that I've seen in SoCal. So it's like an eBay store, right? But what you do is you bring your stuff into this location,
Mhm.
and then you put it on consignment, and then they have an eBay shop, and they list it and they sell it out. Okay.
A la 40-year-old version.
No, well, I think Pointy is kind of in reverse. So what Pointy does is they say, okay, well, look, we're basically a web logistics company. And what we do is you don't have to do anything. Just stick this little device in here, and your inventory will go on sale online. You don't have to do shit.
This is a shot at Amazon FBA.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
This is a shot at Amazon FBA. Okay.
This is gonna change the game because they got this is gonna because you know how some people, or even you guys maybe, you want to order something from Amazon and you look at it, okay, it's 2-day shipping or it's 1-day shipping, but I want it
You
today.
got it.
I want it today.
Yeah,
you got it.
Thank you,
This is
Complex.
what-
Thank you.
yeah.
It cleared it right up for me.
Yep.
Yep, this was a good move. Considering that they only raised $20 million, they got bought for $163 million. That's a
Very good acquisition. Very good acquisition.
Yeah,
Very
this is
strategic.
this is a shot against a
first good ones that
monopolistic
Google's actually
environment.
made.
And then also they have the backing. Well, now they're owned by the world's best search engine.
You got it.
Regardless.
You
So
got
they're
it.
gonna push their
Yep.
products
You
to the
got
top
it.
of the list, which Amazon
You
know,
got
they
it.
depend on that, you know, a little bit. I mean, most
Yeah.
people, if you want to buy something from Amazon, you're just gonna go straight to Amazon. But
This
if
one
you're
is
searching for
real
a specific item, then yeah, all you got to do
This
is most people gonna go to Google.
slick.
Because I was wondering, I'm like, okay, well, why wouldn't you just open up a Shopify store?
Mm-mm.
You know,
Shopify.
Dude, you got to understand, man. Like the age where we're going in, it's about instantaneous.
Yeah.
Right. We need it now because look, again, 5G happens when you have quicker delivery methods. Josh, you were just talking about like how, from a logistics standpoint, if I want it today, well, think about it. What if every brick and mortar just has this little device in it?
Yeah, or imagine these bodegas, you know, that don't have any online access for their goods. Specifically, some of the customary, products that they make, you know, in house, you know, from the Dominican Republic and those other Caribbean places. That stuff gets put online almost immediately.
Yeah,
let me tell you this though as well. I mean, this will also help with the food trucks. Guys that drive around town, they can have one of these pointies, and I'm assuming it will update your location for today. So if you cooking food on the west side of town on Tuesdays and Thursdays, then this thing will know that you're gonna be there.
All you'd have to do, because I'm assuming if you're using this, the only thing that's really going to require is that your business have a Google account, right?
Yep.
So let's just say you have like so your company has a Google listing, and it has like your hours and all that kind of stuff, right? So let's just say you go onto like your Google Plus page and then you send an update, and then the update will show on your Google search listing, right? So then the update will then happen. That's how it would all kind of work within the Google ecosystem. It would basically be based on your business's Google account.
Well,
So whatever hours of operations updates that you make to it, it updates instantaneously. Any updates that you make, it's instantaneous.
Well, there's already an app called What the Trucks that for food.
What the Trucks?
Yeah, instead of what the F is What the Trucks, and it's an app that allows food trucks to identify their location at the time that they're operating, and it allows you to order food through that to the food truck, so that when the food truck is there already.
Well, but again, okay, as somebody who's going into this similar type space, Complex has already hit me up to another thing that I didn't see before the other day. But this, like for me, I'll be for my business, I'll be making a product initially at home, right? I figured out the manufacturing process would allow me to maximize my own labor for one person and still be very profitable off of it, and then subsequently bigger spaces and more help and yada yada yada, right? So, but to use FBA, Amazon FBA, there are a lot of requirements and a lot of strict, if I don't have a certain amount of inventory that they require me to have on hand at the local Amazon box retailer, or it's not retailer, but facility, then I get dinged. I get dinged. I get charged this. I get penalized. This and that. The other thing. If they can format,
this doesn't require any of that shit.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep, I follow.
This is the app right here. Mobile app startup, what the trucks could put an end to long lines at food trucks. So this app was developed back in 2014. And it's based on the very principles that you're talking about, keep protecting.
Which is the main, and again, for me, this is awesome to me because that's the main reason I wasn't even considering Amazon FBA before, because I'm like, I don't know, I don't want to accidentally not be able to hit the margins that I need to hit.
I was about to say there's too much potential for ass rape to happen.
Yes, and because they're the only game in town that does that, right?
That's the reason why there's too much potential for ass rape.
Exactly. I'm thrilled. I am so thrilled.
Yeah. I've the same reason why I've stayed off Amazon, man. Same reason.
That's why I was really going to go slow by, like, say, avoiding them entirely, even though I know I can scale up faster using FBA. I'm like, there's a risk there. There's a lot of risk there. And I'm glad
you're doing your due diligence, man.
Even if it's not, and here's the problem. This is the real problem for the ass rape that way. Even if it's not anything to do with you, even if it's Amazon's fault, you still get raped.
Somebody's got to bite the bullet, right?
All right, this next item on the docket is from futurism.com. NASA wants to grow a moon based out of mushrooms. I know some people smoke mushrooms. NASA scientists are exploring a peculiar. Sorry, help me out with this word for a second.
Where's it go? Particular?
It's too small.
No, it's not.
NASA scientists are exploring a particular strategy for building a moon base and other off-world structures, growing them on site out of living mushrooms.
No, there was no T there. That's what I was confused about.
Oh, because I couldn't see shit.
Yeah, peculiar strategy for building a moon base and other off-world structures, growing them on site out of living mushrooms. The space agency first considered a possibility of fungal space habitats in 2018, but now scientists are conducting tests to determine how well mycelia fungus might grow in a Martian soil. If the research plans out, it would allow future astronauts to construct off-world settlements without needing to carry expensive, heavy building materials with them all the way from Earth. A game changer in the plan to colonize space. Game changer, 00100. I think they should leave the moon alone, man. I think they should leave the moon alone. I don't think they should be putting mushrooms on the moon, man. It wasn't there before. Leave it where it is.
You know what? I'm gonna save my psychedelic jokes for another time.
Well, we didn't have cell phones before either, so
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, that's an advancement in technology, but I don't think the moon needs to be advanced with mushrooms on it.
Okay, I'm really gonna resist the urge and save my psychedelic jokes for another time.
I'm also trying not to use the puns or Dark Side of the Moon references, but
God damn it, Judge! Really?
Now we need to know.
Jesus.
Judge, you use the bomb?
You just went there with it. I mean, I was gonna go there, but fuck it. You already did it.
But I mean, they're using what are they doing with mushrooms? They're building a lot of the packaging material, packaging molds and forms using fungus, right? So, yeah, if they can make it, if it doesn't require this structural sensitivity because of reduced amounts of, gravity.
Mhm.
So, see, and their what's it called? Photophyllogenic. Is that the word? Is that the term?
Yeah. All right, let me get to the next article from TechCrunch.com. Space Angels Chad Anderson on entering a new decade in the entrepreneurial space age. Because somebody talked about this before. Space as an investment target is trending towards in the VC community, but specialists from Space Angels has been focused on the sector longer than most. The network of angel investors just published its most recent quarterly overview of activity in the space startup industry, revealing that investors put nearly $6 billion in capital into space companies across 2019. I spoke to Space Angel CEO Chad Anderson about what he's seen in terms of changes in the industry since Space Angels began publishing this quarterly update in 2017 and about what's in store for 2020 and beyond as space matures and comes into its own. Informed by data released publicly, SEC filings, and investor databases, as well as anonymized and aggregated info from Space Angels' own due diligence process and portfolio companies management, Anderson is among the best positioned people on either the investment or the operator side to weigh in on the current and future state of the space startup industry. 2019 was a record year, a record number of investments, a record number of companies, a record on all these fronts. Anderson said 2019 in its own right was a huge year, but then you look at everything that happened over the last decade. We always refer to this last decade as the entrepreneurial space age. So certain people in the manosphere social space had said, you guys are crazy for talking about investing into space exploration.
You're
6
still
billion
crazy.
2019.
You're still crazy. Investing in space technology.
Yeah, I mean I think I don't even think early adopter is even the term yet for putting money towards the cause. Right, but to be able to do it, it's necessary to have the moon as a launching point. So because that's the logical point. Why would you continually come back to Earth and back and forth and over again? So, and again, when we're talking about, you talked before about on your programs, the mining, the asteroid and comet mining and mineral mining, mineral acquisition.
Yeah. It's not looked at. See, the thing about it is the way people are looking at it is it's something where, oh yeah, you're going to send something up there and then you're going to dig into an asteroid and then bring the stuff back to Earth. It's like, no, you may actually, you may mine it to send it elsewhere up there. You may actually build a way station. It may be, there's the whole sort of archeo, I'm trying to remember what the technical term they're giving it, but that whole realm of thought as it relates to commercial development and stuff like that, I mean, it's a very quixotic industry. It's a very quixotic industrial pursuit. I mean, only the guys that are really thinking long money are have this on their radar.
Yeah, and you're talking about Long money. Yeah.
That's exactly right. You're exactly right.
But the good news is the United States owns all this space because we're the first one to have a space force.
Not necessarily.
Well.
If we have to police it, we own it.
No. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry. Go ahead, dude.
No, I'm saying there's already a treaty within the United Nations that they're not the only ones up there. That's the part of the issue, right? India demonstrated last year that they can shoot down a satellite. And so,
Judge, I mentioned this before when we've kind of gone into this realm of discussion. There's a realm of politics and legal thought called exopolitics, and it deals with the jurisdiction of space or the lack thereof, right? So it's about the legal framework of a place that you can't place boundaries on. Okay, because say that again, Mike.
Can't colonize things.
Right.
Can't leave your trash up there either.
Right. So it's a different form of geopolitical. We can't call it geopolitical. We have to call it exopolitical.
Earth based, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Right. So everything is terrestrial based. You have two main constructs of legal framework that govern things here, right? So you have maritime, and then you have terrestrial, and then you have the legal venues that the subsets of legal venues that exist within both two main frameworks, because those are
which is where you get airspace rights, right? Yeah.
Right, exactly, because you basically only have two main terrestrial surfaces, and they fundamentally act differently, right? Water has current, and it can move things from one place to another, right? So an area of law that's going to govern that mass of land or what have you, or lack thereof, is going to fall in the maritime, and then you have the opposite. Exopolitics, though, I mean, what the fuck, dude? You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
See, so right now, what you have going on, where exopolitics, it really has the most important application in terms of its framework, is in cyberspace, because that's an area of cyber.
Going from macro to micro, right? Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, because in cyberspace doesn't exist terrestrially, so
right.
it falls in the legal framework under which, say, like cyber warfare happens, for example, is actually under an exopolitics framework.
Oh, you mean space warfare?
Exactly.
You mean space warfare? Yeah.
I'm sorry. Space warfare. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Space warfare.
Shooting down satellites,
right.
damaging them, and things of that nature.
Right.
You guys freaking astound me, man. The breadth of, I said it before on another panel, the breadth of knowledge you guys display is fascinating. It's astounding to me.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you. The reason why we talk about space exploration, and like this article is pointing out, because the cost of the technology has come down significantly. It would cost you billions of dollars to put a satellite up there. Now you're talking you're lucky if it's going to cost you maybe $25,000 at best. And we're talking about cube-based satellites that you can download the blueprints from NASA. NASA leaves the blueprints up there on purpose. It's open source. And they also left the blueprints up there for their rover. So you can build your own rover now.
Dang. Well, yeah.
Yeah. So it's out there. You get a piggyback, or not a piggyback, a Uber or sort of ride sharing, lift sharing for one of these rockets that's going up there. They're constantly going up there every day. I think Japan has a mini rocket that's about 12 feet tall or something like that, that actually gets into lower Earth orbit and goes up there on a frequent basis. So we're seeing this sort of you know, transitioning of you know, big government, big agency actually trickled down to the startup level. And now you don't even need to have your own rockets or anything like that. I think we covered an article not too long ago about, or at least last year, that talked about Detroit, Michigan is actually talking about building the space launching pad up there. They can launch towards the North Pole. Right? And I think there's actually talks about putting a space pad in Maine, out of all places, Maine, because it's closer to the North Pole.
Huh. Yeah,
it would make sense, and you know, I guess you'd have to basically just schedule seasonal launches, or
I would guess if you have small satellites, it's not going to take much. You know, you know, we covered Africa. You know, Kenya has a repurposed oil rig in the ocean, in the Indian Ocean, not the Indian, the Red Sea.
Red Sea.
That is used for launching rockets now.
That is. I mean, it's not something that would have entered my sphere of thought until you brought it up. But yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense, actually, an application for it. But if you're not looking for it, you're not going to find it, right?
Well, that's true. But what I'm saying is the cost has come down significantly. You can build your own rockets now, 3D printed. I mean, we covered an article about that in California. There's some of the SpaceX people who left SpaceX.
Relativity.
It's a 3D printed rocket.
It's a company called Relativity. They have the world's largest 3D printers, and they print rockets.
Well, yeah, no, it's, you know, again, the intersection of Moore's law, you know, and what it means to, you know, microsize technology while also reducing its cost. Yeah.
This is this is again, man, you know, we always kind of, you know, we use this whole fourth industrial thing as a sort of like a catchphrase. But these types of deep dives that we have here more or less illustrate what is capable within all of this, and we're only scratching the surface. So we're talking about what's actually being done now. You know, that's the other parts of this.
Yeah, and again, and you know, right, and folks like me, again, you guys are the heralds. Folks like me aren't even considering any of this, haven't even given the slightest thought, and therefore are already that far behind. You know, that's kind of why I appreciate, again, what I'm so grateful that I came across your guys' channel.
Thanks, man. I you know, I mean, and by no means, man, are we the only people. You know, and when I say people, I mean, you know, like brothers. Actually, Mike and I've been actually trading some links back and forth of some channels we've been coming across as of late. I mean, these people they're not even in the meta. They have nothing to do with this shit, right?
Right.
But they have channels that are just off the charts. So I think we'll put together a live stream in the future, and we'll get together these YouTube channels. We're going to share them. These are just like brothers and sisters, man. There's a Black YouTube consultants group channel that's out here. You know, got some very good information that we came across here last week. There's brothers that are making like AI powered drone projects and doing real dope like YouTube like vlog productions with the shit. Just a lot. That's the thing, man. You know, if people don't know, then they don't know, right? So yeah, you know, we're gonna get that list of channels together. You know, we'll put a live stream together and just kind of put people up on game on like what our folks are out here doing, man.
Yeah,
we're doing this shit too. You know,
I need to eat more of my vegetables than being involved in some of the stuff.
You need to go vegan.
I knew it was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen, but I mean, I got so excited once I actually found this space and people would let me on and talk. That, like, You know, but then, you know, I started to realize, I'm like, I know it's going to come. I know it's going to come.
Yeah.
There's not going to be camaraderie forever. I understand what's going to happen here.
Yeah, let me jump to this next article. This one's from fastcompany.com. How have Puerto Rico's new microgrids performed during its massive power outage? After Hurricane Maria, battery companies like Tesla and Sony helped set up alternate power systems across the island. Now the island is without power again. They are showing a way forward instead of counting on Puerto Rico's beleaguered utility. When a 6.4 magnitude quake hit Puerto Rico on January 7th, followed by more than 120 aftershocks in the next few days, and then another 5.9 earthquake on January 11th, it took out electricity across the island. In the city of Loiza, the local Boys and Girls Club started pulling power from solar panels and a Tesla Powerwall battery, a system installed during the blackout after Hurricane Maria. We still have no power from the grid there. Abdon Escalera, who works with the Boys and Girls Club, said on Friday. And on other parts of the island, like the capital of San Juan, where the organization has another building with a solar and battery system, the power is currently coming and going, he said. The earthquake damaged a power plant in the southern part of the island that is responsible for around a quarter of the electricity used in Puerto Rico. The head of Puerto Rico's embattled Electric Power Authority, PREPA, said that the power plant might be offline for as long as a year. After the quake on the 11th, PREPA had to close the island's largest power plant again. That's probably going to mean rationing or rolling blackouts for the foreseeable future, says Javier Ruyan Jove, the policy director for Sunrun, a company that produces and installs solar microgrids. So we talked about renewable energies as a viable market for Black people to get into. And this article came across my feed the other day, and I said we got to really talk about this because Hurricane Katrina, what's happening in Flint, Michigan, and you know, even with the floods that hit Houston, if I remember correctly, it was Houston. A whole lot of areas, even Hurricane Sandy, you know, that was impactful. So a lot of opportunity that's going to come out of this.
I think that was in the guerrilla farming hangout.
Yeah.
That was when we covered it. And so if you guys go to the channel, go into the videos, and if you search in there and put guerrilla farming, what was it, Mike? Guerrilla farming, and what's the title of that one?
It's guerrilla farming.
Yeah, just put guerrilla farming. I think we covered like portable energy generation solutions and container shipping, you know, using containers for various types of you know, quick setup, you know, either, you know, charging platforms, you know, retail venues for things like, you know, farm stands, and you know, we kind of explored all of that there in that hangout.
Yeah, most of these are actually permanently off grid, says Adam Jetzer, Senior Director of Revenue at Sony. I was actually visiting one of them after the hurricane when the power had been restored, but there was a nationwide power outage because a dump truck backed into a power pole and it took down a power to the whole island. Wow. And we didn't notice because we were on a microgrid. In remote mountainous areas, the centers serve as a place that people can go in advance of a disaster if there's warning, as in the case of a hurricane. As long as a microgrid itself isn't damaged in a disaster, it can keep operating when transmission lines or large power plants are destroyed. It's proven technology that really shows how the central generation of paradigms of the 19th and 20th century have to be revised. when you have distributed solutions, you have distributed responses. So, wow, that's pretty massive.
Well, yeah, but when you use the cars as a reference point, right?
We say that again?
I said when you look at the cars as a reference point.
Yeah, well, it is massive in terms of what they're attempting to do, right? So microgrid.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it had to be transported some way, right? Because if it needs to be placed somewhere else, I mean, how would you actually move it? The thing is that the United States government, under the Tangerine Tyrant, took the money that was allocated for Puerto Rico's relief and actually gave it to the this Momo in Venezuela. The opposition to Maduro. A lot of people don't know that. That's why Puerto Rico is suffering right now. The money that they
Guaido.
Yeah, Guaido. The money that they should have gotten in Puerto Rico, they gave it to this Momo in Venezuela.
Hey, wait, did you hear about that today where they came across some warehouse, and in the warehouse was all of these relief supplies?
Yeah,
they were holding them. They hoarded them, dude. It never went out to the people.
Yep.
Crazy.
Oh, that's so bad.
Yeah, that story broke today.
Horrific, man. It's horrific what they're trying to do, man. These are some of the stuff that we cover locally, man, about disaster. You know, what would you do? What would Black people do in a disaster if the government cut you off? High probability they could do that. They're doing it to Puerto Ricans right now. And Puerto Rico is a commonwealth for the United States.
I feel bad about Puerto Rico. It seems like it's Florida and California. It's suffering all of everything.
Right.
I feel it's really hard not to feel bad for those people. You know, you just come off a hurricane to get a tsunami, to get a category 6.
To get a damn earthquake.
You're right.
Damn.
I mean, what's next, right?
Anything that can go wrong, it has already gone wrong, right?
I mean, the island can sink.
Well, you know, and not to mention, right? And we're saying like those, okay, right? Those are 3 separate disasters, but there's also many disasters that come with that, right? Diseases and right, you know, like, oh man.
Yeah, and in comes telehealth, right? Telemedicine, because there's no facilities available.
Like and then the lack of availability to treat, and it's like it's horrible. It's so horrible. I feel so bad.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. We have a lot of people here. We have a lot of PR constituency here.
Yeah, a lot of brothers from Caribbean, the islands, and yeah.
Oh, that specifically Puerto Rico.
Puerto Ricans, yeah.
Yeah, that are flying back and forth, and trying to figure out what to do as a strategy in coming up with bug out bags and search and rescue operations and stuff like that. With some stuff that we've been training on. So Black people should really think about this, man. What happened in Hurricane Katrina happened in Flint, Michigan. You have schools in Baltimore that were freezing, public schools freezing, where kids were learning in the freaking cold, with their coats on and their feet shivering. I don't know, man. But people really believe that the imperialists are gonna come to the rescue. They are surely mistaken.
That musical play, but it ain't gonna be.
All right.
Anyways.
Let me get to this last one on the docket. This one is from ASHA.org. Benedict Quarterly, 8 of 2018, breaking barriers in self-driving car technologies for Africa.
Mike, when are we doing the building EV chat?
We was waiting on you.
Man, I told you I already got everything together.
Okay. Since 2004, self-driving car technology has gone from widely experimental to evidently possible. Google, Uber, Lyft, and other leading tech and automotive companies are in the race to produce the safest and most reliable self-driving cars. While the technology is undeniably the next step in the world of commercial and private mobility, capturing the attention of engineers and technologists the world over, the biggest roadblock to autonomous driving research and development is the barrier of entry. For small startups and individual researchers and engineers in the developing world, access to self-driving platforms will remain an aspiration due to high costs. For Benedict Corti, 18, addressing this gap is the goal of his capstone project. So there you can see his autonomous vehicle here. Small as it can be, it's actually a good test bed.
Mm-hmm.
My project seeks to build a low-cost modular autonomous vehicle development platform aimed at providing students and researchers with a low-cost autonomous vehicle to develop self-driving technology, he explained. Not only are self-driving cars earmarked to revolutionize the car industry, but research also shows that the technology is expected to save close to 600,000 lives by 2045. For the developing world, where deaths by car accidents are especially high, this technology is long overdue. In 2015 alone, an estimated 246,719 people died in Africa due to road accidents, he explains. The Ebola epidemic, which in 10 months took 11,315 lives, would have had to maintain its ferocity for a straight 18 years to even come close to the road fatalities of 2015. This is quite serious and deserves some attention. 1.25 million people die every year from road accidents, even though low to middle income countries only contain about 54% of the world's vehicles.
Hey, Mike.
These countries somehow contribute to 90% of all road accident fatalities, with Africa having the highest death rates. Go ahead, bro.
I was going to say, now, this is the same country where this guy's doing this. This is the same country that doesn't have or the same continent, I'm sorry. It doesn't have running water and electricity.
Where's the toilet at, man?
What? Really? No, I said, is this the same place that doesn't have electricity and water and no toilets and they're doing this in that
mud
place?
huts?
Where's the power at?
Really?
Maybe they're using microgrids.
Wait, what'd you say?
No, I was like, where's the power at?
I think they might be using candles.
Candle powered.
Yeah. For his project, Benedict designed and developed a driverless platform complete with a model car, allowing technicians, researchers, and developers to become part of the ecosystem without dealing with high costs. With a combination of procuring low-cost parts for a model car and 3D printing some parts, in addition to the platform, he's taken a huge step in extending this reach to the developing world, allowing for research and development to be possible for our context by our own people.
It's all steam powered. This is all steam powered. That's what that is.
Maybe it's a steampunk.
It's steampunk.
It's powered by
it's
wishes.
Black power, man. Black power.
It's powered by wishes.
No, it's vibranium. Is that a Mac right there? Mike, can you scroll up a little bit?
Let me read this real quick. I developed virtual hardware and software infrastructure complete with data collection pipelines designed to allow African students and researchers test their ideas and implement self-driving algorithms using similar machine learning and control techniques used in the industry, he explains.
Look at that lab. That's in a place with no water and electricity
and no power.
Look at that lab. That's an Apple. It's a MacBook Air.
They're all powered by kente cloth.
God damn, Judge.
As research and industry progresses, it's imperative that the African market and the rest of the developing world follow suit. For Benedict, this project is just the start. Hmm.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. That picture right there. If you look in the bottom left at the computer screen in the bottom left, that's algebra.
Mhm. Yeah, you ain't shit, Judge, man. Oh man, look at this, man.
And he said this is an open platform too.
He developed it.
Yeah, it's.
But he's an educated lane. No reason to listen to him. He's not select.
Well, he's also in Africa where they don't like you though, Mike.
Mm-hmm. They don't like you though. So I like seeing things like this. Makes me proud. Makes me feel good. I want to invest in guys like this, in brothers like this on the continent. Man. I see them doing. He's leading he's leading the way from an open source perspective.
That's what I mean. His shit is open source.
Yeah. Here's the thing is I don't know if anybody else I don't watch it anymore, but for a while there when it first came on Shark Tank, I used to watch that. And on one of these shows, Kevin O'Leary, right? The bald-headed guy, bald-headed white guy. He, a kid came up, I think an Asian kid. He came up and he was actually recycling and reselling cell phones, right? Refurbishing, recycling, and reselling for used cell phones. And I remember this specifically because he was like, you know what? And you came up with this business when you were like 14, 15. You've been up in it. It's been profitable. He's like, you know what? I'm going to buy your business. I'm going to give you every dime that you want. He said, and I'm going to tell you, I don't care about your business. I'm going to do that because I want somebody like you on my team. Because you have the availability to come up with an idea, push it through to fruition, and make the adjustments to make it to where it's functional, not as a handout, but as an operating business. And so I when you said what you said, I heard basically the same thing. You understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You put money towards people who were, virtuous, people were behaving like opposites of this.
Well, no, Judge, you got to understand, you're right on point with what you're saying and what your assessment of what Mike is saying. So, because for example, we're going to be doing a build an EV hangout, right? Where I got all my files together here from my EV project from a few years ago, where I'll explain how we'll go from literally from 3D CAD design to build, right? But do you realize that like this dude solves like the other half of the equation?
Mm-hmm.
It's the software, it's the platform, it's the AI, it's all that. Right. I have the hardware.
Right.
See how this kind of works?
Yeah. No, I see the symbiotic relationship to this is. Yeah.
Right. And his shit's open source. I'm gonna dig into this project, man. I'm gonna see what's going on with it.
Sorry, I misspoke. The synergistic, rather, not
yeah.
symbiotic.
No. We understood. But yeah, you see how it overlays, right?
Yeah.
No. Space Cowboy says so. He built a do-it-yourself AWS deep racer vehicle. I mean, that may be the case. It doesn't really specify, but according to some people, this guy is, these people should be in mud huts. They should be in the Stone Age. Breaking bricks with their, breaking rocks with their hands. They should be rubbing two sticks together to get fired.
I'm so trying to resist the urge. I'm resisting. Okay.
No, just do it. Just do it.
I trust me. If anybody understands the urge, most everybody on this panel understands the urge.
No, I see things like that, and I'm like, how do we channel resources into a brother like this? How do we make sure that he gets the startup capital so that he can continue his, this agenda, right? And how do we become a part of that project? So we have something in Boston called Black Entrepreneurs Meetup, where we do something exactly like this, where we meet up once a month and we kind of go around the table and we kind of explain which projects we're working on and do we need any help with it. And then there's other people who can actually leverage help. Like there's a brother who does 3D printing. He's amazing, young millennial cat, man, amazing. But he can print anything. He can do just about anything you need done. And so he's there to help facilitate that area. And then there's another brother who's a data scientist. He works in big pharma. So he's involved in that area. We have another brother who works at Akamai, who's a Python developer. So we have, considerable amount of human resources who take time to, if you explain your project to them, they can give you some insight from their perspective. And so Complex, that's who I meet with about the legalization of cannabis. That's who I talk to, the city council. They're the run who's running this.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's, well, I mean, I can get coffee.
They need people who can write business proposals, people who can write grants and things like that, people who can do documentation, technical writers. That's what they're looking for, people who can contribute. But, I like seeing this brother, and what he's doing, man. It doesn't look like he's the only one in the room, man. It looks like there's other cats doing it. But they don't like you, though. So
they don't like you, though.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so people will sit up here and say, Africans are, they're malnourished, their bellies are poking out, they have flies all over their face.
Must resist.
Yeah, but
wait, but he doesn't like you. Freddie Figures doesn't like you.
Yeah.
Blanking. $40 million to students to pay their tuition. Robert
40 million.
F. Smith.
Robert Smith doesn't like you. Kind of running out of people to like us, or you guys. Well, I'm sorry, you guys, because I'm beige. So
you colorist.
I'm beige. I don't count. So
you're a colorist.
He's the Gen X version of Drake. So. No, but I don't know, man. I mean, how many articles have we covered Complex, man, over the course of time, and we see young cats like hungry. We covered a Senegalese young 15-year-old who robotics engineer putting together breadboards and circuit boards on his own.
Man, I mean, what about them young Arab cats from Canada, man? Them blockchain cats.
Oh,
that was rocking with Max Kaiser, dude.
Yeah, I think they were Indian.
Indian, I'm sorry.
They were Indian.
Yeah, Indian cats. They were like 15, 16, man. Max Kaiser's got them up there like, yo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and that was what? That was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, they all grown up now. Probably got.
Yeah, I'm wondering what's good with them dudes, dude. I mean, they're blockchain millionaires by now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but,
I'm pretty sure Max Kaiser threw money behind them.
But they, but they don't have an Instagram account with 20 followers,
No, that's what I'm saying. They got Max Kaiser money behind them. They don't need Twitter and Instagram accounts.
Seeing them shake their ass. So, and here's the other thing about that. You know what? They ain't special, because if I would have done the same thing that they did, then I would have that.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes yes, that makes logical sense, but you didn't. So never mind. Let me stop.
Let me share my screen again, because I want to cover this as well. We covered this a couple of years ago, but remember these Sudanese brothers who built the robot out of scrap parts, right? They built the drone out of scrap parts, and actually won first place in their startup prize for inventions on the continent.
Wait a minute. Is there electricity in there?
Maybe they might be using potato acid or something.
Okay, so they're using like the 2 copper prongs, and you put them into a potato
Hmm. Or a lemon. Or a lemon. It could be a lemon.
or a lemon. You can use a lemon too. That's right. You can use a lemon for that. So they've got like a whole bunch of lemon trees in the back.
Mm. Right. So the country Sudan has been ravaged by desertification, and they wanted to use drones to actually scout the area for irrigation purposes.
Yeah.
And they did all this from scratch. But we covered this a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it was a minute ago.
Yeah,
It was like one of the first like topics and articles we covered, man.
Well,
how's that laptop powered?
That one is powered. It's powered by a mouse running in a little hamster wheel.
Maybe a marsupial or something, right?
or a little when you know how they have. Okay, dude, forgive me, you guys. You know how they have, like those little monkeys that have like the hat that play the drums.
Oh, you mean
but
the Shining style? Yeah.
Wait. Instead of playing the drums, they have one riding like a little mini bike, and the rear wheel is attached to a small little generator.
No, man. Let me tell you that. Like I'm explaining it to you guys this last time. Do you okay? So you know what a fez is, right?
Yep.
Those big hats that look like those red hats that look like cups.
Yeah, the little fez and the tassel. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the tassel's not really a tassel. What that is for it to catch in the wind to go around in circles, and that produces current.
Oh, so you mean it's a wind generated green energy device.
Right, but that's only one. The other aspect of it is the friction creates static electricity.
I mean, you have to come on. Mike,
these guys built this from scratch.
No, it's fascinating.
Let me see.
Wow, look at all that.
Again, it's just see, because I'm looking at that landscape, and I get it. They have extra time. You know why, right? I looked at that landscape, and I did not see one Popeyes.
You're terrible.
oh God, dude.
Amazing. Look at this.
Did you see a Popeyes?
No.
Obviously, correlation means correlation equals causation. So
beautiful.
There you have it.
What a beautiful sister.
She is. Oh man.
She's a light skin.
Yeah.
No,
light skinned it. No, she's gorgeous.
Yeah, she's absolutely fucking gorgeous.
Yeah. Yep. She's gorgeous.
But look at this, man.
I mean, dude, what was that guy saying? Who was that guy? I mean, you know what? I'm not trying to be insightful, but I really need you to come back on and explain to us what we're looking at here, because something's not matching quite.
Climate change and deforestation means Sudan streets are protection and fertile soils to turn into the desert.
You know,
these types of environments, they don't have especially from a fourth industrialization standpoint. You can embed modern. Look at that. What the hell is that? That looks like the inside of the mothership. Okay.
Well, Yakub would be proud.
She looks like a beautiful chick from Star Trek. Jesus, what am I looking at? I want this. Judge, you want this?
It's not half bad. I'll tell you that. You know, Yakub, the big-headed scientist, would be proud.
Oh boy. Oh, you know what? Oh God. All right. I totally lost my point. Anyway.
Just kind of looking at this thing that's going on here, and if so, I'm just saying, if there was another country in the Middle East that had similar problems with, I don't know, irrigation issues, and was working on science and methods to try to, I don't know, irrigate a arid environment in the region, they might want to, consider fostering some goodwill towards others who are in those same type of environments.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Hey, Mike, that's what we were talking about earlier, man. You see the secondhand PC? There's like an old Dell PC that they're using.
Well, isn't Sudan one of the dumping countries?
Oh yeah,
they are. I don't think they are. I think Somalia might have been one.
no, it was like Somalia or something, like Ethiopia or Somalia, or one of them.
Yeah, it might have been Somalia, but that stuff it happens all over the continent, right? They really don't have a waste management system.
Yeah. Well, no, what I'm saying is not saying that it's a dumping country. It's that it's a country that other people pay their governments to dump their stuff on them.
Yeah, but that's starting now. Philippines was a heavy place for dumping ground. Now they're pushing everything.
Yeah, dude, Duterte started sending all that back.
Sending it back to Canada. Don't send your trash over here. I don't know, man. 3, 4 laptops up in there.
Uh-oh, here we go.
That's a lot of fezzes. What is the plural for fezzes? Fez.
No, it's just fez.
Yeah, but this sort of stuff, man, these guys needed help financially trying to get right components and whatnot. They did it from scratch, right? I'm moving in a direction that VC capital, microfinancing, physical help, right? As a resource.
Yeah.
This is what we do in social enterprising, though. This is what social enterprising is about. A lot of people, have come through here and have said, social enterprise, you guys are crazy. I'm a capitalist. What do we need to do with social enterprising? Okay.
I mean, the thing about
but
it.
How is social? Explain to me again how social enterprise is counter capitalism.
I'm still trying to figure that out. According to them, capitalism is barbershops and nail salons, burger, wing shacks.
I'm gonna. Oh yeah.
Yeah, where's engineering cannabis?
I mean, dude, I'm still on that right there. I'm still actually, dude. I'm gonna go blow a little bit more herb because this is really killing me right now.
Well, actually, it only recognizing great strides in technology only is Hotep if you only acknowledge it from 10,000, 3,000 years ago. So when you're talking about going from the spear to the Adelaide,
the original man. Remember, everybody, the black man's your original.
Yeah, if you talk, there's no point. Again, you cannot, Freddie Figures and what he's doing. No, that doesn't count because reasons. Oh, yeah, because some of the employees might not also have the same skin tone. Because why can't he just go out there, start his company, fund his company, and train an entire ADOS community to work for him at the same time, while also paying them more than $75,000 a year, because anything less would be usurious.
And also keep in mind, it's 110, 120 degrees out there.
Oh yeah. No, that's real desert. That's
You know what? I'm getting real sick and tired. As the more I look at this, the more I think back to that conversation we had.
There's been many conversations.
I mean, but it's just like, dude, you know, because look, I I took some shit because some felt I was a little harsh on our guest. Now, I guess I'll go ahead and take this moment to apologize for that. But damn it, dude, look at what we're. Come on, really?
This is, NGOs, non-government organization funding that they receive in all areas of activity. A lot of that money still gets left on the table, but can actually be repurposed for social enterprise work. And so that's what we should be focused on if we're talking about fixing Black communities and things like that. That's how you fix it, is through leveraging the funding that's available from your local institutions to resolve and advance the environment. That's a part of being progressive, right? And so people look at pro-Black and they just say pro-Black just means I'm for Black people. No, it has to be advancing your people as well, and not just waving flags and burning incense and banging on tambourines and shit.
And shout out to Gear ZNet also, and Dr. Phoenix for the the garage sale fundraising mechanism.
Well, look, Mike. I'm sorry, I can get this out. Okay, yeah. So these guys did this, and it's an immense accomplishment, from specifically from the materials that they were dealt, to the ability to learn how to put these things together, the ability to get that education that they had to get to learn how to put these things together, to use these rough materials. But one thing that they didn't have to go that they didn't have to suffer through to get this accomplished: white supremacy.
They really didn't.
I mean, it may have been Arab, point. but they may have had to suffer through Arab.
No, actually, what we were looking
Arab
at
supremacy, but
no. From what we were looking at, we didn't see anyone who had any foot on anyone's neck at any point. We saw brothers in a laboratory with laptops and shit, powered by electricity that we were told doesn't exist, right? And they're building fucking drones. So apparently this was powered by a lemon orchard that was out in the back, as we previously discussed. Right. Whatever the case may be, they did it.
Yes.
They just went and did it. And Mike, you remember back in the day, the early RC days, man, we scratch building.
Yes.
That's what these guys did. They scratch built a fucking drone.
Yeah, but you had to have. I mean, according to some people, these people live in huts. So how would they know anything about technology? What do you mean?
That's what's killing me about all this, and I'm really trying to tone down the facetiousness. So
yeah, but Engineering Cannabis said something in the chat that I think is really, really interesting. Is that he said recognizing great strides in technology is Hotep. And so,
say that one again.
Yeah, so I think that's a very interesting statement, and that's a good way to close out the live stream. So thank you all for joining us. Please hit the like button if you're not already done so. Share the video if possible. Also hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those posted on the community tab. Docket in the description, you hit the video for you to reference some of the articles that we've gone over today.
And we are out.
Yeah, I'm definitely checking out.
Somebody got raised a hand. Oh, go
ahead, Judge.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't realize my mic was still open. Definitely checking out Pointy, but I appreciate you guys having me on, and power on, power through. That's all I can.
Hey man,
that's all I can hope from you guys. That's all I can hope from you guys.
Anytime, Dan. We appreciate your contribution.
Yes, sir.